Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. Pick up attributes like crazy. Chapter 81. Xiao Jian's mouth twitched. Could it be that he was asked to investigate? The grudge between Shaolin Temple and him has not been resolved yet. Moreover, Shaolin Temple also hides an unfathomable sweeping monk. That strength is absolutely a land immortal. Asking him to investigate is like throwing meat buns at a dog, and he will never come back. Ji Gang smiled slightly. Don't you want to see the battle of the Grand Master? I'll take you to Shaolin Temple. After that, he grabbed Xiao Jian's shoulder and disappeared in the palace. When Xiao Jian reacted, Ji Gang had already brought him to midair, flying towards Shaolin Temple at a very fast speed. At the same time, Jiamoji also came to Shaolin Temple. A lion roar of Buddhism spread his voice throughout Shaolin. The Tubo National Master Jiamoji came to visit. Please give me some advice, Shaolin Master. The loud voice awakened the Shaolin monks. What a deep inner force. The head of the discipline courtyard, Xuanji, changed his face when he heard the words. A bit anxious. Ever since Shuzu was brought back by the abbot, in order to help Shuzu consolidate his cultivation and master the inheritance of the Grand Master. These days, Zhansi led several high monks of the Zhan generation to retreat and protect Shuzu together. They haven't come out yet. Only he, the head of the discipline hall of the 8th level of the Grand Master, was left to guard the temple. I hope they can still make it. Zhanji chanted a Buddhist name, glanced at the direction of the backyard, and then led the monks to the gate of Shaolin Temple. I didn't know that the Tufan State Master was visiting. I'm sorry for not welcoming you. Zhanji exchanged a few polite words with Jiamoji, and Jiamoji went straight to the point. Master, I came here this time because I heard that the 72 unique skills of Shaolin are unique in the world. I have heard of it for a long time, and I want to learn martial arts from Shaolin Temple. Please teach me. After speaking, Jiamoji bowed and rushed straight to Zhanji. Zhu Mazi is a Tibetan monk. His martial arts skills are the best. As a descendant of Tantric Buddhism, he is a Buddhist disciple of Shaolin Temple. There are commonalities in all aspects of martial arts. Compared with each other, Zhanji is obviously not Zhu Mazi's opponent. But after just a few dozen moves, Zhanji was defeated. He was hit on the chest by Zhu Mazi's powerful Vajra palm and flew backwards. Zhu Mazi chanted a Buddhist name. It is said that Shaolin is a Buddhist holy land, but now it seems nothing more than this. You can't even take my powerful Vajra palm, which really disappoints me. Zhanji was furious and said angrily, Shut up. Shaolin Temple has been passed down for thousands of years, how can you destroy it? Zhu Mazi shook his head. My Vajra palm is not even as powerful as Xiao Jian's, let alone you can't handle it. If Xiao Jian comes, can you find someone who can match him in Shaolin Temple? Zhanji was speechless by Jiamoji's words. Everyone in the martial arts world knows Xiao Jian's name. Even Xiao Jian's martial arts are said to be miraculous. What makes Shaolin Temple most embarrassed is Xiao Jian's perfect Vajra palm. No one in the entire Shaolin Temple has ever heard of anyone who can practice to his level. It's incredible. Jiamoji saw Zhanji's gloomy face and kept silent. So he used the Buddhist lion roar and shouted. Jiamoji, the Tubo National Master, came to Shaolin to visit. Please teach me, Shaolin monks. The roar echoed throughout the Shaolin Temple. Zhanji's face was as gloomy as water. Jiamoji didn't take him seriously. But he had already been defeated by him, and the brothers had not come out of retreat. For a moment, Shaolin Temple was in a very embarrassing situation. He shouted for a long time, but no one came out of Shaolin Temple. Jiamoji sighed. Is there really no one in Shaolin Temple? He came here to exchange martial arts with Shaolin. In addition to wanting to see the 72 unique skills of Shaolin, he also wanted to find a chance to sneak into the Shaolin Sutra library. He promised Xiao Jian that he would find the Yijinjing to exchange martial arts with Xiao Jian. But now it seems that the monks of Shaolin Temple have disappointed him. Suddenly, a Buddhist chant was heard in Shaolin Temple. Zhanji was happy when he heard the voice. He turned around and looked back. He saw Zhan Nan coming out. Brother, you are out of retreat, where are the abbot and others? Zhan Nan shook his head and said, Brother Abbot is still in retreat, so it is inconvenient to see guests. After speaking, Zhan Nan walked in front of Jiamoji. Since Master wants to see the Shaolin martial arts, I will show you my skills. Zan Nan could tell at a glance that Jiamoji's cultivation had reached the 9th level of Grand Master. He was only a little short of the peak level of Grand Master. Obviously, after the last Grand Master inheritance event, Jiamoji's martial arts had improved greatly. Jiamoji looked solemn and stared at Zan Nan. His muscles were tense. He also knew Xuan'an's strength, the peak level of Grand Master. He was just a little bit higher than him. But just this little bit made Xuan'an qualified to mobilize the power of heaven and earth. It put great pressure on Jiamoji. In an instant, the two of them had already fought together. A fierce battle unfolded in front of the gate of Shaolin Temple. In the woods in the distance, Ji Gang and Xiao Jian seemed to be in another world. People who were not at the Grand Master level could not detect the existence of the two. Ji Gang looked at the two people fighting and smiled. How many moves do you think Jiamoji can block? Without the ability to mobilize the power of heaven and earth, it is basically impossible to defeat Xuan'an. Not everyone is like Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian shook his head. Jiamoji's strength is beyond doubt. His talent is extremely extraordinary. It is impossible to cultivate to the 9th level of Grand Master at the age of more than 50 without any backup. However, Xuan'an is at the peak of Grand Master after all. He has an advantage in cultivation level. How many moves Jiamoji can hold depends on when Xuan'an will use his big move. The two stared closely at the two people fighting fiercely in the distance. Jiamoji has a very deep study of Shaolin's unique skills. Several Shaolin's unique skills make the tiger look powerful. What kind of powerful Vajra Palm, Great Light Fist, were used to fight back and forth with Xuan'an's Prajna Palm? If Xuan'an did not use the power of heaven and earth, he would not be able to defeat Jiamoji for a while. Boom! After the two fought hard, they each retreated a few steps. Xuan'an showed a bad look on his face. If Jiamoji escaped from the gate of Shaolin Temple, how could Shaolin still have the face to stand in the world? Jiamoji, since you want to see the Shaolin skills, then let you see it. Xuan'an shouted loudly, and a faint golden light suddenly appeared behind him. The surrounding spiritual energy began to gather around Xuan'an frantically. Finally, a thin halo formed on Xuan'an's palms. Jiamoji's pupils suddenly shrank. The internal force was running rapidly, and a faint flame emerged from his right palm. This is his unique skill, the flame knife. Driven by the internal force, the flame knife seemed to have passed through space, turning into an invisible blade and rushing straight to Zan Nan's face. HMPH. An ant trying to shake a tree, overestimating one's own strength. Zan Nan snorted coldly and pushed out with both palms. The palm shadows in the sky surrounded Jiamoji. The power of each palm shadow was comparable to the peak attack of a master. Boom! The two people's blast raised a cloud of dust in front of the Shaolin Temple, and the invisible shock wave pushed in all directions. As the smoke and dust dissipated, Jiamoji lay on the ground, with strands of blood oozing from the corners of his mouth. The clothes on his body were torn by the terrifying energy. Looking very embarrassed, Zan Nan smiled, put his hands together and asked, "Master, how about the Shaolin Temple's unique skills?" Jiamoji sneered, "What Shaolin unique skills? It's just relying on your higher cultivation level to mobilize the power of heaven and earth. If you and I are at the same level, you will definitely be the loser." Zan Nan's face suddenly became gloomy. He said lightly, "If you lose, you lose. If you don't accept it, I will fight you again when you reach the peak of the Grand Master level." Zhu Mazi shook his head and staggered to his feet. "If your Shaolin unique skills are strong, why do you need to mobilize the power of heaven and earth to fight against me? How could you lose to Xiao Jian?" Zan Nan said angrily with a dark face, "If there were no people from the Sun and Moon sect beside me last time, I would not have lost to Xiao Jian." Defeated to Xiao Jian is the last thing Zan Nan wants to mention. He also regards it as a lifelong shame. If there is a chance, he will never let Xiao Jian go. In the woods, Xiao Jian is busy picking up the martial arts fragments that float over. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Prajna Palm and automatically comprehending Prajna Palm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Flame Blade and automatically comprehending Flame Blade technique. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Internal Force Value plus 150. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 150. Ji Gang heard the conversation between Jiamoji and Zon Nan and suddenly smiled. Xiao Jian, do you want to beat Zon Nan again? Ji Gang knew that Xiao Jian was very strong. He could defeat the peak of the Grandmaster with the cultivation of the first level of the Grandmaster. But he had never seen his specific strength with his own eyes. It happened that Zon Nan was shouting here, so Ji Gang's heart moved. He grabbed Xiao Jian's shoulder and threw him out. Xiao Jian was grabbed by Ji Gang and thrown between Jiamoji and Xuanan. Everyone in the field was stunned. They stared at Xiao Jian, who suddenly appeared with their mouths wide open. Xuanan almost couldn't breathe when he saw Xiao Jian. He just said something big, how come Xiao Jian appeared? And the timing of his appearance was so coincidental. Jiamoji's eyes lit up. He suffered a loss here with Xuanan, and he wished Xiao Jian would take action and make Xuanan lose face. Xiao Jian's mouth twitched wildly. He didn't even want to take action in Shaolin Temple. He wished he could hide as far away from the level of the sweeping monk. But Ji Gang didn't follow the routine at all. He threw him between the two. Isn't this asking him to add fuel to the fire? As for what Ji Gang said about the Grandmaster generally not taking action, he didn't believe it at all. Isn't Shangba a Grandmaster? Appear directly in Wushuang City. If Xiao Jian hadn't brought up the imperial court, Shangba would have been afraid. I'm afraid that at that time, Shangba would have slapped him directly. Even if he didn't do it directly, he still gave him a trick in secret. And the great master Zanxi was even more fierce. He ran directly to the Sun and Moon sect and severely injured Shang Wenshan with a slap. Now they ran to Shaolin Temple to cause trouble, angering Zanxi. It would be strange if he didn't take action. Even if Ji Gang is against Zanxi, what about the sweeping monk? The two of them together cannot possibly be the match of the sweeping monk. Xiao Jian's expression changed, and he looked at Zon Nan awkwardly. Master, I said I was just passing by, do you believe me? Zon Nan's face was very dark, and he said angrily, what do you think? He didn't want to fight with Xiao Jian either. If he won, it would be called bullying the weak, which would only make people laugh. If he lost again, it would be the face of Shaolin Temple. Moreover, he knew Xiao Jian's strength, and it was really difficult to deal with him. Jiamoji laughed maliciously. Master Zon Nan, you looked down on Lord Xiao just now. Now Lord Xiao is here, why don't you two have another fight and let this poor monk open his eyes? Xiao Jian sighed. He knew that he couldn't get away from this. Ji Gang was still watching in secret. If he still wanted to stay in the Jinyue, he couldn't go against Ji Gang. Since Ji Gang wants to see his strength, let him see it. As long as Ji Gang can make a move in time when Zanxi makes a move, it will be fine. Thinking of this, Xiao Jian no longer hesitated and bowed to Zon Nan. Jinyue Xiao Jian, please teach me, master. Zon Nan's face sank. Xiao Jian challenged him at the gate of Shaolin Temple, he had to accept it. He immediately put his hands together and released his peak master's momentum. Jiamoji slowly retreated, leaving the battlefield for the two of them. Zon Nan took a deep breath. The last time he retreated, Shaolin Temple was ridiculed in the world. This time he couldn't retreat again. A murderous look flashed in his eyes, and his figure instantly appeared in front of Xiao Jian. The first move was his unique skill, Prajna Palm. Under the blessing of Zon Nan's peak master's cultivation, his palms emitted a faint golden light. Xiao Jian was not to be outdone. Wearing a star gauze dress, he used the powerful Vajra palm to meet Zon Nan's palms. Boom! The two palms faced each other, and the energy was visible to the naked eye and moved in all directions. Zon Nan's figure could not help but lean back. He took a small step back. But Xiao Jian, relying on the protection of Xingqiang gauze, absorbed most of Zon Nan's attack without retreating a step. Ji Gang's eyes lit up when he saw this scene. A meaningful smile appeared on his face. Zon Nan narrowed his eyes slightly and rushed forward again. All kinds of Shaolin skills attacked Xiao Jian in turn. Xiao Jian was not to be outdone. Since the fight has started, let's fight to our heart's content. The number of martial arts used was even better than Zon Nan's. Moreover, Xiao Jian's martial arts were all top martial arts that were well known in the martial arts world. The gap between his realm and Zon Nan was narrowed by half invisibly. The wonderful fight between the two stunned everyone. Especially Jiamoji. There was extreme fanaticism in his eyes. He is gifted, but he lacks the foundation in top martial arts. As long as he can keep up in this aspect, he is even confident that he can break through to the Grandmaster level within 10 years. Suddenly, Xiao Jian flipped his palm and the invisible sword energy slashed Zon Nan across from him. Flame sword. Jiamoji screamed, looking at the flame rising from Xiao Jian's right palm in disbelief. Xiao Jian can actually use his flame sword skill. This martial art is his unique Tibetan tantric martial arts. How could Xiao Jian know it? Zon Nan was dealing with Xiao Jian's powerful Vajra palm. Unexpectedly, Xiao Jian's palm changed and suddenly used the flame sword. He was not careful for a moment, and his sleeve was cut by the invisible sword energy. Zon Nan hurriedly retreated. The two confronted each other dozens of steps apart. Zon Nan gritted his teeth and said, "Xiao Jian, you are really not simple. Not only are you proficient in many Shaolin unique skills, but you can also use the flame knife of Tantra. It is really impressive." The more he fought with Xiao Jian, the more Zon Nan felt that Xiao Jian was unfathomable. It was very difficult to deal with. Xiao Jian smiled faintly. Master's strength is also quite good. He can fight me on par. This made Zon Nan's face look even uglier. He is the head of Shaolin, nearly 100 years old. It is embarrassing enough to fight Xiao Jian, a 17-year-old boy. Zon Nan was mocked by Xiao Jian in person. Zon Nan was immediately angry and said, "Xiao Jian, young people should not be too arrogant. Being too arrogant will not end well." Xiao Jian waved his hand. If young people are not arrogant, are they still young people? This sentence made Zon Nan's face red. His eyes narrowed, and the murderous aura on his body surged. The spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth began to riot. Gathering around Zon Nan, his figure emits a faint golden light. Today, if he doesn't defeat Xiao Jian, he won't have the face to return to Shaolin. Xiao Jian also became serious. A huge phantom of a divine elephant appeared above his head. The ancient pressure slowly spread. At the same time, the internal force in his body gathered in his palm, gradually forming a transparent spear of the underworld god. Zon Nan stared closely at the giant elephant above Xiao Jian's head. This giant elephant gave him a sense of danger. Looking at Xiao Jian again, he didn't know when a long sword appeared in his hand. The target was pointed directly at himself. "Humph, if you can't mobilize the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, you will never be my opponent." Zon Nan muttered silently in his heart. How can the power of heaven and earth be blocked by a master? Zon Nan forced himself to suppress the distracting thoughts in his heart. The palms carrying the power of heaven and earth suddenly slammed towards Xiao Jian. The sky was filled with palm shadows, each of which could rival a grandmaster's full-strength attack. The power is shocking. Xiao Jian's expression remained unchanged, and he threw the spear of the underworld god in his hand. The spear of the underworld god seemed to have traveled through space. It appeared in front of Zon Nan in an instant. Zon Nan's face changed drastically when he saw this, and the prajna palm suddenly burst out. A terrifying roar sounded in front of the Shaolin gate. Ever since the appearance of the divine elephant above Xiao Jian's head, Ji Gang's brows have never relaxed. He stared at Xiao Jian and muttered to himself, "What kind of martial arts is this? Why have I never heard of it?" Everyone knows the source of Xiao Jian's other martial arts. But the news of the divine elephant on his head has never been circulated in the world. It is only known that this is Xiao Jian's secret skill. When the divine elephant appeared just now, Ji Gang felt a sense of shock. That feeling is indescribable, not in terms of strength. It is more like the pressure on him at the level of life. Ji Gang looked at the smoke and dust raised at the entrance of Shaolin with a serious face. Suddenly he smiled. This is interesting. When the smoke and dust cleared, a large pit of dozens of meters appeared in front of the Shaolin temple. And Zon Nan stood in the deep pit. His face was as white as gold paper, and blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth. He had obviously suffered some internal injuries. On the other hand, Xiao Jian, except that his chest was rising and falling violently, even his clothes were not messed up. "Master Zon Nan, you lost." Xiao Jian looked indifferent, smiling and looking at Zon Nan at the bottom of the deep pit. Secretly, Xiaojian was worried. He carefully sensed the situation around him. As long as there was a little movement, he would run away immediately. Shaolin Temple is not easy to mess with. He beat the head of the temple at the gate. It would be strange if the masters inside could sit still. Sure enough, a figure appeared in front of Xiaojian in an instant. The person who came was Zhan Si. He was wearing a cassock, with kind eyes and a kind face, and looked like a Taoist monk. But the aura on his body was extremely terrifying. Like a vast ocean, he slapped towards Xiaojian. Xiaojian used his wind god leg and immediately retreated dozens of steps. He shouted, "Does the abbot want to bully the weak?" Zhan Si chanted the Buddha's name and said calmly, "The Buddhist sect is quiet, and you dare to do it in Shaolin. Who gave you the courage?" Zhan Si knew about Xiaojian a long time ago. And he knew a lot. Not only did he kill Zhan Ku, but now even Zhan Nan was defeated by him. He is simply a monster. But I never thought that Xiaojian would be so brave that he dared to run to the gate of Shaolin Temple and act wild. Shaolin Temple has not been bullied for many years. If there is no expression, it will be laughed at by the people in the world. Before Xiaojian could answer, Ji Gang's voice came from behind. "I gave it to you." Everyone looked up and saw Ji Gang with his hands behind his back, and appeared in front of Zhan Si in one step. The aura on his body was extremely powerful, and he was faintly competing with Zhan Si. Although the two did not fight, but the air around them was rippling under their aura. The heaven and earth were shaking. Xiaojian's eyebrows jumped. This is the strength of a grandmaster. The aura alone is comparable to the full strength attack of a grandmaster at the peak. The people around him retreated again and again until they retreated 100 meters before stopping. After a long time, Zhan Si said, "The commander has come, and Shaolin Temple is sorry for not welcoming you. I wonder why you are here." Ji Gang smiled faintly. "I have felt something recently, and I would like to ask the abbot for some advice." Zhan Si's face sank, and his eyes looked directly into Ji Gang's eyes. He knew that Ji Gang was criticizing Shaolin. During this period, Shaolin Temple did participate in a lot of Zhonghu affairs. Before, Zhan Ku went to Bili. Later, when there was the issue of the Grand Master's inheritance, he personally went to the Sun and Moon sect to take action. All of these things were related to Jiniwei Xiaojian. I'm afraid that Shaolin Temple made the court uneasy. But Zhan Si didn't know that all this was just because Xiaojian wanted to see the Grand Masters fight. Of course, Ji Gang also wanted to test Shaolin. That's why he brought Xiaojian here. Zhan Si nodded and his body slowly rose. Ji Gang was not to be outdone, standing in the air, and his momentum became stronger and stronger. In an instant, the sky and the earth were surging. Even the floating clouds in the sky were moving rapidly in all directions under the momentum of the two. Has it started? Xiaojian looked up at this scene, inexplicably excited. The battle of the Grand Master. He could make a fortune by fighting for half a day. Suddenly, bursts of golden light emanated from Zhan Si's body. A golden Buddha statue appeared behind him. The Buddha statue was wearing a cassock, with angry eyes and frowning eyebrows. It looked very solemn and dignified. On the opposite side, Ji Gang was surrounded by dragon shadows, swimming around him with bared fangs and claws. With every move, ripples appeared in the space. This was his unique skill, the Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist. The two of them looked at each other and attacked each other quickly. The dragon roared, and Ji Gang punched Zhan Si in the chest. The strong fist force made the space vibrate, and it spread out like waves. The Buddha statue behind Zhan Si seemed to come alive. He took a step forward and merged with Zhan Si. The cassock on Zhan Si's body also became golden. With a wave of his hand, in the blink of an eye, the rapidly rotating cassock met Ji Gang's fist. The space seemed to emit a sound of glass breaking, which was extremely harsh. However, Xiaojian didn't care at all. Instead, he looked at the golden fragments flying towards him at a high speed. The corners of his mouth were almost grinning to the back of his ears. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragments of the Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist and automatically comprehending the Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragments of the cassock and demon suppressing skills and automatically comprehending the cassock and demon suppressing skills. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force value fragments, internal force value plus 1000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force value fragments, internal force value plus 1000. As he guessed, the internal force value fragments on the Master of the Grandmaster can provide him with 1000 internal force values. The same is true for martial arts experience points, and the amount of exchange is also 1000. This speed is not much slower than the Battle of Wushuang City. Xiao Jian's eyes were closely watching the fight between the two people in the sky, and his mind was focused on his attribute panel. Pray that the two will not stop. Jiamoji also looked up closely to watch the two's amazing battle. He had never seen such a battle before. Looking at Xuanqi's Shaolin skills, Jiamoji was yearning. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind to sneak into the Shaolin Sutra library. Each of the 72 Shaolin skills is very powerful. What's more powerful is their plasticity. As long as the talent is high enough, it can be deduced to an extremely high level. Just like Xiao Jian, although his realm is only the first level of the Grandmaster, he can compete with the peak of the Grandmaster. Isn't it just relying on those top martial arts? Boom! There was another loud noise, and the two stopped at the same time and slowly landed. After the previous exchange, both knew that their strengths were not much different, and it was not so easy to tell who was better. There was no need to fight anymore. Looking at Xiao Jian hiding in the distance, Xuanxi sighed. Without saying a word, he took the monks of Shaolin Temple back. With Ji Gang here, it is unrealistic to move Xiao Jian. Ji Gang looked at the backs of the people in Shaolin Temple without saying a word, and took Xiao Jian and soared into the sky. Flying towards Jinling, Xiao Jian silently looked at his attribute panel. After this battle, his strength will usher in a huge wave of improvement. Ji Gang's flying speed is very fast. In just half a day, the two reappeared in the palace of Jinyue. Ji Gang looked at Xiao Jian beside him and smiled slightly. You have also seen the battle of the Grandmasters you want to see, what do you think? Xiao Jian's face was very serious, and he said, the gap between the Grandmaster and the Grandmaster is very large, it is an insurmountable gap. Compared with the Grandmaster realm, the biggest difference between the Grandmaster realm is that it can mobilize the power of heaven and earth. The stronger the strength, the more power of heaven and earth can be mobilized. When the two of them were fighting just now, every move seemed to cause the heaven and earth to collide. The power was infinite. In comparison, the slight force of heaven and earth mobilized by the Peak Master was nothing at all. Ji Gang nodded. It was already very good that Xiao Jian could defeat the Peak Master. At this age, it is very rare to have such strength and be able to recognize oneself. Ji Gang said slowly, the gap between the Grandmaster and the Grandmaster is very large. In the martial arts world, only the sects with Grandmasters can be called first-class sects. As for the Sun Moon sect, Tianxiahui and Shaolin Temple, although their Grandmasters rarely take action, I can be sure that no matter which force, there is definitely more than one Grandmaster. So, your temporary suppression of them is just a superficial appearance. If their Grandmasters really want to intervene in the affairs of the martial arts world, it will inevitably lead to the situation getting out of control, and it may even trigger a war between the court and them. This is why there are few Grandmasters in the martial arts world. In a sense, this is a tacit understanding between the court and the martial arts world. Xiao Jian nodded, but he didn't agree in his heart. All he did was to prevent the martial arts sects from feeling a real threat. Among the people from the Sun Moon sect and Tianxiahui killed by Xiao Jian, there was no important person. If he killed Shang Wenshan at that time, Xiao Jian guaranteed that the Grandmaster of the Sun Moon sect would definitely chase him madly. As for the imperial court, would it still be willing to fight the Sun Moon sect for him at that time? Not necessarily. After all, the Jinyue was just a knife in the hands of the emperor. And he, the commander-in-chief, was a knife in the hands of Ji Gang. People who take themselves too seriously usually have no good end. Xiao Jian has a very clear positioning of himself. Under the skin of the Jinyue, he messes with the forces in the martial arts world and gets some benefits for himself. Ji Gang narrowed his eyes slightly. He said lightly, then what are you going to do next? Xiao Jian's strength is basically invincible under the Grandmaster. As long as Xiao Jian keeps causing trouble for several major forces in the martial arts world, it will be the best result for the Jinyue. Xiao Jian cupped his hands. My lord, I am going to travel around the countries to improve my strength so that I can deal with the next battle with the three major forces. Ji Gang's face changed and he looked straight at Xiao Jian. The gloomy eyes made people feel a little suffocated. Xiao Jian's answer did not satisfy him. Although Xiao Jian's purpose was to deal with the three major sects. But Ji Gang felt that he had his own thoughts. Oh, then tell me the reason. Xiao Jian said lightly. Now the Tianxia society is busy with its own affairs. The rebellion of Fengyan and Xiongba will inevitably distract Xiongba, and the threat to the court will be greatly reduced. As for the Sun and Moon sect, Xiong Wenshan is seriously injured. It is impossible for him to recover so quickly in a short time. Shaolin is not to mention. They are monks. From the perspective of justice, there is no possibility of any major conflict with the court. So next, if the Sun and Moon sect and the Tianxia society recover and want to take action against the court, they are likely to join forces. I need to improve my strength to deal with them. There was nothing wrong with Xiao Jian's words, on the contrary, they were very beautiful. Everything he did was to deal with the Zhonghu sects. But it made Ji Gang very dissatisfied. In his opinion, Xiao Jian's strength was enough to deal with a Grandmaster, so could he be expected to deal with a Grandmaster in a short time? Just thinking about it was impossible. It is impossible to cross the threshold from the first level of Grandmaster to the Grandmaster without 20 years. Even if Xiao Jian is very talented, it will take more than 10 years. He can't wait for Xiao Jian for more than 10 years. He must take advantage of this time and let Xiao Jian strike while the iron is hot and continue to suppress the sects in the martial arts world. So that he can find an opportunity to defeat them one by one. Ji Gang pondered for a long time, and paced back and forth in the palace with his hands behind his back. There are people in the court who can win the peak level of Grandmaster in the Grandmaster realm. But there are not many people who dare to offend the three major sects to death like Xiao Jian. Which master doesn't have his own little tricks? He is afraid that he will offend the people in the martial arts world and be liquidated in the end. Therefore, Xiao Jian is the most suitable person to be the one to break the situation. Forget it, since you want to experience it, it's up to you. However, I can only give you half a year, and you must come back after half a year. Ji Gang sighed and said to Xiao Jian seriously. He had to agree. If Xiao Jian gave up, he couldn't fight the martial arts sects with Xiao Jian's head. Xiao Jian bowed and said, "Thank you, Commander." Then, Xiao Jian left the palace. Xiao Jian knew Ji Gang's purpose soon after he became the commander of the Jinyue. It seems that he has great power and can mobilize the Jinyue of a prefecture. But what about the reality? None of his Jinyue obeys him. In other words, Xiao Jian is just a commander without troops. Jinyue can only be transferred when needed. Normally, he is just a title. Unlike Qinglong, Baihu and others, they are Ji Gang's confidants and have their own direct subordinates. It can be said that they have tremendous power. Of course, Xiao Jian only cares about the title of Jinyue. Under the skin of Jinyue, he fights against the martial arts sects under the banner of the court. Let the court and the martial arts sects consume each other. He will always be the final winner. Xiao Jian walked out of Jinling City and found a secret place, then pulled out his attribute panel. Name: Xiao Jian. Age: 17. Skills: the first chapter of the Divine Elephant Prison Power, 236 Giant Elephant Particles. Can condense the spear of the underworld god. Martial arts: perfect Vajra palm, perfect star movement, great wind god leg, great cloud palm, small frost fist, small heart demon attraction, small dragon subduing 18 palms, small North Sea divine art, small flame knife, small wilderness holy dragon fist, small Kasaya demon subduing art. Martial arts experience value: 33,140. Internal force value: 45,585. Since we are going to the various countries, we have to improve our strength first. Xiao Jian's heart moved, and all the internal force value was used to improve the realm. At the same time, the experience value was used to condense the giant elephant particles. In an instant, his momentum began to increase rapidly. Grandmaster level 2. Grandmaster level 3. It didn't stop until it reached the 4th level of Grandmaster. The giant elephant particles also began to awaken crazily. More than 300 giant elephant particles awakened together, making the roar of the giant elephant faintly emanate from his body. The shadow of the giant elephant suddenly appeared above Xiaojian's head. As the shadow stepped, the space around Xiaojian actually fluctuated. Moreover, with the awakening of more than 300 giant elephant particles, Xiaojian found that the shadow became more and more substantial. Although the size became much smaller, the pressure it gave people increased exponentially. Ah! The giant elephant roared to the sky, and the space fluctuated more violently. The surrounding heaven and earth shook, which was somewhat similar to the situation when Ji Gang and Zan Si fought. Is this the power of a grandmaster? Xiaojian's eyes lit up. Although the fluctuation of the space was a little smaller than when the two of them fought. But it was definitely not something that the peak of the grandmaster could do. Xiaojian's mind moved, and the internal force in his body gathered towards his right hand. At the same time, the giant elephant above his head began to devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of meters quickly gathered towards him. It made it easier to condense the spear of the underworld god in his hand. But in the blink of an eye, the spear of the underworld god was successfully condensed. He pinched it and felt a full touch. It felt almost the same as holding a physical spear. Hee, look at this power, it's effortless to kill a grandmaster. When in Wushuang City, a spear of the underworld god could seriously injure the grandmaster Baihu. The power now is more than 10 times higher than before. Maybe it can really collide with someone who has just entered the grandmaster. Xiaojian's mouth corners slightly raised, and the spear in his hand immediately disappeared. This place is still closer to Jinling City. If you really throw it out, it may attract the attention of Jinling masters. It is better to have less trouble than more trouble. Xiaojian immediately put away the giant elephant phantom above his head and walked towards the direction of the Tang dynasty. Tang dynasty, Yangzhou City. Yangzhou Ancient City is a famous city in the Tang dynasty. Usually, many outsiders will come here to appreciate the charm of the ancient city. But the recent Yangzhou City is a little different. There are many more people coming, and they are all martial artists. In an unknown alley, 2 young men sat on the ground panting, and there was a beautiful woman behind them. The woman was only in her 30s, with a long sword on her back, and she was extraordinary, giving people a heroic feeling. Ko Zhang, Ziling, you can't rest anymore, it will be troublesome if they find you later. The woman shouted anxiously. She was the Goryeo woman Fu Junjuo, who was a master. Ko Zhang waved his hands with difficulty. Mom, we really can't run anymore, let's take a rest. The 2 brothers Ko Zhang were helpless. I thought that my life would be easier if I found a master mother. Unexpectedly, they were chased by a group of people in the martial arts world before they had even lived happily for 2 days. Their kung fu was so poor that they were not even innate. How could they run away? Fu Junjuo shook her head helplessly. Her face was full of helplessness. She did not expect that the news of the Chengshangju had been leaked. Now every person in the martial arts world in Yangzhou City is looking for them. These days of hiding from place to place, it was all thanks to her master-level cultivation that she could lead her brothers to escape from the pursuit of everyone. But as the news spread, more and more people came, and they became stronger and stronger. She was already unable to cope with it. Forget it, there is a tea house in front, let's go have some tea first. Fu Junjuo looked around and pointed to a tea house not far ahead. Wen Fang, Ko Zhang and Xu Ziling's eyes lit up and they began to disguise themselves skillfully. But in a few moments, the few people changed drastically. Unless they are acquaintances, they may not be recognized. The 3 of them came to the tea house to drink tea. At this time, Xiaojian, who was drinking tea and resting in the tea house, looked around in surprise. I just came to Yangzhou, and I didn't expect that in a small tea house, I could see a master and 4 or 5 Shantian realms. This is simply unbelievable. Is the martial arts style of the Tang dynasty so strong? Shantian is worse than dogs, and masters are everywhere. It's unlikely to think about it. Ming and Tang are neighboring countries, and there is no reason for the martial arts atmosphere to be so different. Coincidentally, a group of people were discussing nearby. It's been almost half a month, and Fu Junjuo hasn't been found yet. Where did he run to? Anyway, she can't run out of Yangzhou City. I don't know how many people are waiting for her at the city gate now. I heard that even the saint of Sihang Jingzai and the witch of Yingkui sect are here. It would be great if I could see their beautiful faces. You think too much. If you can find the Changshengju, maybe they will promise you their bodies. Xiao Jian was shocked when he heard this. Only then did he remember the story of the Changshengju. According to the people around him, at this time, the Changshengju should still be in the hands of Ko Zhang and Xu Ziling. Moreover, this Changshengju is related to the Demon Emperor's relic in the future. If he absorbs it with the Beiming divine art, I don't know how much his strength can be improved. Maybe he can break through to the Grand Master. Xiao Jian's eyes lit up all of a sudden. Not to mention the distant future, if he snatched the Changshengju, how many people in the martial arts world would come to fight him? Now, he is least afraid of fighting. Xiao Jian's mouth corners slightly raised, and he has begun to plan in his heart. On the side, the two brothers Ko Zhang heard the content of the conversation of the people next to them, and their hearts were lifted. People from Sihang Jingzai and Yingkui sector here. That is the top sect of the Tang dynasty. During this period, Fu Junjuo told the two of them a lot of things in the martial arts world. Let them gain a lot of knowledge. This Sihang Jingzai and Yingkui sector powerful, they naturally know. Can't help but worry about their own situation. Ko Zhang said cautiously, Mom, they said that there are people guarding the city gates. What should we do now? After hiding for more than 10 days, the two brothers could no longer hold on. After all, their cultivation was too low, and the people who came to catch them were at least in the Shantian realm. There were even many grandmasters. It made the two run around. Fu Junjuo gave them a look, signaling them not to speak. But it was too late. A warrior in the Shantian realm looked at the three people in confusion. Two teenagers, a woman, this combination. Suddenly, the eyes of the Shantian warrior lit up, staring straight at the faces of the three people. Want to see something? The tea is ready, let's go. Fu Junjuo said lightly, calling on the two to prepare to retreat. Now it's only one Shantian realm, but as long as they have a conflict, countless warriors will rush up in a blink of an eye. It will be another fierce battle at that time. The three hurriedly walked to the alley. The Shantian warrior also followed quietly. Xiao Jian looked at this scene and murmured, is it such a coincidence? It seems that the Changshengju is destined to be with me. With a wave of his hand, he threw a piece of silver on the table, and then followed. Before entering the alley, there was a wave of fighting in front of him. But it disappeared in an instant. When Xiao Jian entered the alley, he saw that the innate warrior was lying on the ground and fainted. The brothers Fu Junjuo and Ko Zhang had disappeared. There were warriors running around quickly. Obviously, they sensed the fighting waves here. Xiao Jian looked at the warriors around and murmured, this is interesting. Fu Junjuo led the two people to wander in the alley. Xiao Jian followed the three quietly. Many warriors were searching everywhere. But after waiting for a long time, no one found Fu Junjuo and the other two. You have a lot of experience in escaping. Xiao Jian looked at the three people hiding, with a hint of amusement on his face. But think about it, the three of them were able to hide in Yangzhou City for more than half a month, plus Fu Junjuo's master-level cultivation. It was easy to avoid some Shantian realm warriors. Xiao Jian's eyes turned, and a stone was attached to the palm of his hand. He flicked his finger and it fell on the wall near the three people. Swish! The rapidly flying stone made a harsh sound in the air. Hit the wall, and the stone wall next to the three people fell down with a bang. Raised a cloud of dust. Oh no, there is a master. Fu Junjuo's face changed, and she looked at the wall that was knocked down with horror. Just now, she only heard the harsh sound, but did not find out what was thrown over. Obviously, it was because the speed was too fast, even she could not react. With such a master staring at them, it seems that they will not be able to escape today. Fu Junjuo grabbed Ko Zhang and Xu Ziling who were stunned beside him, and burst out at the fastest speed, disappearing in the alley. Quick, there is movement over there. Shua, Shua, Shua. A group of figures quickly came, looked at the knocked-down wall, and then chased in the direction of Fu Junjuo's escape. In order to leave as soon as possible, Fu Junjuo did not care to hide her breath. She knew she could not hide. What's more, there was an unknown master staring at them. She could only leave as quickly as possible. Hope to get rid of the master in the dark. Xiao Jian followed the three people calmly. Once the three people showed signs of escaping, the stone in his hand flew out immediately. He caused a huge commotion around the three people. He attracted all the warriors nearby to the direction of Fu Junjuo and others. After 2 rounds of this, even Xu Ziling knew something was wrong. "Mom, is there a master coming?" The 2 brothers looked around in panic, but did not see a single figure. Fu Junjuo nodded with a heavy face. He tried his best to take the 2 people to avoid being surrounded by the crowd. But under Xiao Jian's deliberate guidance, the 3 were still surrounded by a group of warriors. "Fu Junjuo, you don't have to run anymore. You can't escape from our palms no matter how much you run." A master sneered. With so many people, it was embarrassing enough for Fu Junjuo to hide in Yangzhou City for so long. Could she still run away now? If Fu Junjuo was alone, there might be a chance of escape. But with 2 burdens, it would be a foolish dream to run away from them. The people around were staring at Fu Junjuo in the crowd. They were afraid that she would abandon Ko Zhang and run away. "Mom, you are good at martial arts and they can't trap you. Go out and find someone to help." "Yes, their goal is the Changshengju, they won't do anything to us." The 2 brothers knew that they were holding back, and they didn't want to embarrass Fu Junjuo, so they began to persuade him. They hoped that Fu Junjuo would seize the opportunity and run away quickly. Fu Junjuo shook his head. His eyes were fixed on the many martial artists present. They are just some chickens and dogs. If they want the Changshengju, it depends on their ability. Among the people present, her cultivation was the highest. She was already a 7th-level master. However, taking care of the 2 brothers Ko Zhang involved most of her energy. In addition, there was a master hiding around, so she had no confidence at all. HMPH, how shameless. Another Grand Master snorted coldly and rushed forward to kill him. The rest of the people saw this and rushed forward to kill him. When it comes to the secret of longevity, no one can control their desire. In the dark, Xiao Jian looked at the scene in front of him calmly. The system prompt sounded ding-dong in his ears. "Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Yijianshu and automatically comprehending Yijianshu. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Liandao and automatically comprehending Liandaoshu. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Yuming Ghost Sword and seeing the comprehending Yuming Ghost Sword. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 15. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 100. Xiao Jian frowned slightly. In addition to the rubbish martial arts, there is only a little internal force value. It's not enough. If you want to rely on them to provide internal force value and experience value, it's still a little bit lacking. However, a little bit adds up to a lot, so Xiao Jian would not feel too uncomfortable. In the dark, Xiao Jian put his hands behind his back and watched the fight calmly. The 3-legged skills of Ko Zhang and the other 2 could not even deal with a congenital. It was only thanks to Fu Junjuo's protection that he could save his life under the siege of the crowd. But as time went on, Fu Junjuo also looked a little embarrassed. Just when Fu Junjuo was about to collapse, a cold voice came. "Stop." Then Shi Feishuan's figure suddenly appeared among the crowd, and the majestic internal force burst out. Shocked everyone back a step, and then blocked in front of Fu Junjuo. "Is it already the Grandmaster level?" Xiao Jian smiled faintly. With Shi Feishuan's talent, it is not surprising that she can break through to the Grandmaster level. But her breath was not steady, and it was obvious that she had just broken through not long ago. "Saintess of Sihang Jingzai, what do you mean?" a Grandmaster said angrily. Seeing that they were about to succeed, but Shi Feishuan ruined the good things, anyone would be angry. Shi Feishuan bowed to the crowd around her and said, "The matter of the Changshengju has caused unrest in the world, which is really wrong. The master couldn't bear to see the people of the world being killed for it, so he ordered me to come and take away the Changshengju." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. Everyone wanted the Changshengju, but Sihang Jingzai was the top force in the Tang Dynasty martial arts world. They couldn't afford to offend them. Everyone's face turned ugly. She squeezed the weapon in her hand, wishing she could rush up and snatch the Changshengju and run away. Fu Junjuo's eyes changed, and she turned to look at the crowd around her, and then looked at the Ko Zhang brothers. She was tangled in her heart. She didn't care if the fight continued, but Ko Zhang and the other brother would definitely not have a good ending. But she was unwilling to hand over the Changsheng Ju. Just as everyone was wavering, a sweet laugh came from a distance. Master Fei Zan, you Sihang Jingzai don't want to take it for yourself, do you? Wanwan's body movements were elegant, leaving behind a series of afterimages, and she appeared in front of Shi Fei Zan in the blink of an eye. His face was full of amusement. She wouldn't let Sihang Jingzai do anything he wanted to do. Moreover, the secret of longevity has not been solved yet. How could she let Shi Feishuan get it so easily? Wanwan, this is none of your business. Why don't you go back and stabilize your cultivation? Wanwan also broke through to the Grandmaster realm recently. The realm is not yet stable at this time. When the people around them saw that the Yin Kui sect and Sihang Jingzai's people were facing each other, their eyes suddenly lit up. The eyes are shining with blood-eating light. Shi Feishuan frowned slightly. This longevity secret is a disaster, and it will be troublesome for anyone who falls into the hands of it. Only by placing it in their Sihang Jingzai can the greed of people in the martial arts world be suppressed. Wanwan, this is no child's play, please stop fooling around. Master Fei Zan's cold voice sounded, making Wanwan couldn't help but chuckle. Why am I fooling around? Rumor has it that this longevity formula contains the secret of longevity. You can't block people's future. As soon as Wanwan's words came out, the eyes of everyone around her became red. Immortality. Is the secret of immortality really related to the secret of longevity? They only know that the immortality art is an extremely profound martial arts secret book. Legend has it to do with the Grand Master. I didn't expect it to be related to longevity. Shi Feishuan was so angry that her face turned red. With great difficulty, she was able to use Sihang Jingzai's name to suppress everyone's greed. But when Wanwan revealed the secret of longevity, everyone could remain calm. With red eyes, regardless of life and death, he fought desperately towards Fu Junjuo. Wanwan was no exception. She wanted to bypass Shi Feizan in a flash. Seize the secret of longevity. But he was stopped by Shi Feishuan. A group of people were fighting fiercely. Xiao Jian smiled slightly. He was planning to do it himself just now, but now it seems that he can wait a little longer. The battle lasted for a long time, and more people participated in the battle. They were all warriors who came after hearing the news. A small part of them are those in the Master Realm. Fu Junjuo couldn't bear it any longer. He rolled his eyes and threw the secret of immortality into the sky. I give you the secret of immortality. After a shout, Fu Junjuo took Ko Zhang and hid aside. Instead, I watched the excitement like an outsider. Everyone rushed to grab it like crazy. All the secret tricks to keep the bottom of the box are used. With everyone fighting, the scene became a mess. People in the Shantian realm were either killed or beaten out. Even the two masters, Wanwan and Shi Feishuan, were pushed aside by the crazy crowd. The system prompts in Xiao Jian's mind never stopped. Suddenly, Xiao Jian raised his eyebrows and looked at the system panel carefully. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the cloud-repelling palm fragment, the experience value is plus 100. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the star-shifting fragment, the experience value will be plus 100. Is this Bu Jingyan and Murong Fu? Why are they here? Xiao Jian murmured to himself and looked carefully. Sure enough, among the crowd, Bu Jingyan and the others stood out very conspicuously. The group of people closest to the center. The warriors of the Tang dynasty also had quite good abilities. One of them even has the 5th level of cultivation of a grandmaster. He blocked several masters by himself, including Murong Fu and Bu Jingyan. Murong Fu looked ferocious and roared, "Get out of here!" The stars shifted and formed a rapidly rotating storm, blocking everyone's attacks. At the same time, Bu Jingyan's cloud-dispelling palm suddenly activated, and the shadow of his palm spread all over the sky, beating many people to the point where they vomited blood and flew backwards. Is this the Ming dynasty's star shift? The world's expelling cloud palm? The face of this Tang dynasty warrior who was at the 5th level of Grandmaster changed and he shouted loudly, "You are from the Ming dynasty." Nan Murong of the Ming dynasty, and Bu Jingyan, the master of Feiyan Hall. As soon as these words came out, many people's expressions changed. They all stopped and looked at Marong Fu and Bu Jingyan in the center of the field. The Ming dynasty and the Tang dynasty have always been in harmony with each other, especially in the rivers and lakes. If people from the Ming dynasty came to the Tang dynasty, they would be excluded by everyone in the martial arts world. Seeing that he was recognized, Marong Fu looked a little proud. His name, Nan Marong, is quite famous. Everyone in the Tang dynasty knows it. Bu Jingyan, on the other hand, looked at the people around him indifferently. It's really you. The warrior at the 5th level of the Grandmaster gritted his teeth and said. He was originally the number 1 master in Yangzhou, named Shi Long. I once went to the Ming dynasty court for training, so I naturally know a little about the martial arts warriors of the Ming dynasty. Especially the most famous ones among them. When he traveled in the Ming dynasty, he was defeated by the warriors of the Ming dynasty. So he doesn't have a good look towards Ming dynasty warriors. This is an opportunity for me, the Tang dynasty. You people from the Ming dynasty, get out of here. Shi Long shouted loudly, causing everyone around him to cheer. Everyone saw the strength of Marong Fu and Bu Jingyan just now. The strength is very strong. If they withdraw from the competition, everyone's chances will be better. Bu Jingyan sneered disdainfully. Do you think you are Xiao Jian? Let us retreat, and we will retreat. Marong Fu's face darkened and he glanced at Bu Jingyan beside him displeased. The last thing he wanted to hear right now was Xiao Jian's name. If it weren't for Xiao Jian, he wouldn't have made up his mind to go to the Tang dynasty for training. Xiao Jian, who is Xiao Jian? Shi Long frowned. When he went to the Ming dynasty a year ago, he had never heard of Xiao Jian's name. Bu Jingyan said disdainfully, Xiao Jian is someone you can't afford to marry. When he was in Wushuang City, Xiao Jian could rival the peak of the Grandmaster. Dealing with a Shi Long is even less of a problem. Shi Long's face was ugly, and he moved to kill Bu Jingyan and the others. Shi Feishuan looked at Bu Jingyan and Marong Fu and murmured, why are they here? Since Bu Jingyan and the others can come, what about Xiao Jian? Will he come too? Shi Feishuan looked around. Wan walked up to Shi Feishuan and said jokingly, hey, what is the saint of Sihang Jingzai looking at? Shi Feishuan's face turned red in an instant, as if she was caught. Wan laughed and said, it seems that our saint is tempted. Is she looking for Xiao Jian? She has only seen Xiao Jian, the person who can make Shi Feishuan have such an expression. Shi Feishuan snorted coldly, but did not answer, but looked around. Wan stopped teasing Shi Feishuan and followed him around to look for Xiao Jian. Although the situation was chaotic now, but the two of them were still sure to control it. Before coming to Yangzhou, their master had told them that they must take the Chengshengju back. Although Shi Long was strong, he was only a 5th level master. If the Chengshengju fell into his hands, it would eventually be taken away by Sihang Jingzai or Yinghui sect. But if Xiao Jian was there, they would not be sure that they could take the Chengshengju away from Xiao Jian. The battle between the three lasted for a while, and Marong Fu and Bu Jingyan were defeated. Although they were not injured, they were still slapped away by Shi Long. He, is this the warrior of the Ming dynasty? Not so good. Shi Long showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He hit the two as hard as he could. Marong Fu and Bu Jingyan had been hit hard by Xiao Jian, and they didn't care about such a small setback at all. The only thing that made the two depressed was that Xiao Jian was also a 1st level Grandmaster, so why could he beat a peak Grandmaster? And the two of them, working together, couldn't even beat a 5th level Grandmaster. Shi Long glanced around proudly. At this moment, he was in high spirits and was about to take this opportunity to take the Chengshengju into his pocket. In the dark, Xiao Jian's pupils suddenly shrank, and he murmured, now, it's my turn. Xiao Jian still hopes to use the Chengshengju to make trouble, so how could he allow it to fall into the hands of outsiders? Before Shi Long stretched out his hand, he suddenly appeared in front of the Chengshengju. He took the Chengshengju into his pocket. Shi Long stared at Xiao Jian, who suddenly appeared, his face full of murderous intent. Who are you? How dare you steal my things? In front of everyone, Xiao Jian took the Chengshengju lightly. He raised his head and chuckled, your stuff. Is your name on it? The Chengshengju was thrown out by Fu Junjuo. Naturally, whoever grabs it will own it. Now, it's in his hands, so it's his. On the side, Shi Feishuan and the others looked at Xiaojian, who suddenly appeared in surprise. Opened his mouth wide, and didn't react for a while. Xiaojian actually came. Bu Jingyun looked at Xiaojian, smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seems that Xiaojian is the protagonist today again. Where Xiaojian is, they become a foil. The kind that is inconspicuous. Murong Fu's eyes were bloodshot, and his hands were clenched into fists. The look he gave Xiaojian was extremely cold. Because of Xiaojian, his name, Nan Murong, was basically stinking in the Ming dynasty. I originally wanted to break a new world in the Tang dynasty, and then return to the Ming dynasty to seek revenge on Xiaojian. I didn't expect to meet Xiaojian again in the Tang dynasty. He really has his figure everywhere. Looking at the Tang dynasty warriors around him, Murong Fu's eyes turned rapidly. Obviously, he didn't have anything good to say. Shilong looked at Xiaojian's face carefully. He was about 20 years old, but he had the cultivation of a master. What an amazing talent. It's obvious that he must be a disciple of a big force. But after thinking for a long time, he didn't have any impression of Xiaojian. Shilong suppressed his anger and asked coldly, "Who are you? How dare you snatch the Chengshengju? Tell me your name." Xiaojian shrugged and said lightly, "I am the Xiaojian they are talking about, the Jinyue of the Ming dynasty." What? Another warrior from the Ming dynasty? How many people from the Ming dynasty have come? This person is actually a Jinyue of the Ming dynasty. He dared to come to my Tang dynasty. How dare he? How can the opportunity of the Tang dynasty fall into the hands of the Ming dynasty court? The people around him became excited all of a sudden. If the Chengshengju was taken away by the masters of the Tang dynasty, they would not be so indignant. But on the land of the Tang dynasty, in front of so many of them, if the people of the Ming dynasty took the Chengshengju away, it would be a slap on the face of the Tang dynasty. All of them. Shilong suddenly sneered. A hint of cruelty appeared at the corner of his mouth. Okay, it turns out that you are from the Ming dynasty court, and you actually want to get your hands on the treasure of the Tang dynasty. Since you dare to come, then leave your life today. Shilong looked confident. Xiaojian was just a young boy. And his realm was only the 3rd level of the Grand Master. He was already the 5th level of the Grand Master. He could easily suppress Xiaojian. The 2 Ming warriors had been beaten back by him. But this was not enough. He only needed to kill Xiaojian in front of him and scare the people around him. They would not dare to fight with him again. The secret of immortality would be his. Shilong became more and more excited as he thought about it, and he sneered at Xiaojian. It seemed as if he had seen the Chengshengju waving at him. The surrounding warriors also slowly retreated, leaving enough space for Shilong. At the same time, they shouted loudly, "Kill him, kill the Ming dog." The Tang warriors next to him were full of confidence in Shilong. He was the best fighter in Yangzhou. With the 5th level cultivation of the Grand Master, what problem could there be in dealing with the Jinyue of the Ming dynasty? Shi Feishuan and Wanwan looked at this scene in amazement. They knew that Xiaojian could rival the peak of the Grand Master. And Shilong actually wanted to fight Xiaojian alone. Isn't this courting death? Shi Feishuan raised her hand to stop Shilong. But she was stopped by Wanwan. Wanwan smiled and said, "We haven't seen Xiaojian take action for so long, don't you want to see Xiaojian's strength again?" Since the last time they parted, they were arranged to retreat by the sect. After so long, Xiaojian's strength has successfully broken through to the Grand Master level. Today is a good time to see how strong Xiaojian is. Shi Feishuan hesitated for a moment, and put down her raised hand. But it was this hesitation that made her regret it immediately. Shilong narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at Xiaojian as if he were looking at a dead person. Then his pupils shrank, and the momentum on his body suddenly burst out. The air wave formed pushed the surrounding people back one step. Awesome, worthy of being senior Shilong. This power, no matter where in the Tang dynasty, it is a powerful force. Fortunately, senior Shilong didn't kill us just now, otherwise we would all be miserable. Everyone started to discuss. He looked like he was still in fear. Shilong listened to the flattery of the people around him, and his momentum became 3 points stronger. He shouted loudly, "Daming dog, take my holy dragon fist." The strong internal force gathered on his fist, faintly forming a dragon shadow. In the darkness, one could still hear the sound of a dragon roaring in his ears. Shilong made up his mind to beat Xiaojian to death with one punch, so as to scare the others. Xiaojian looked calm, looked at Shilong who rushed up, and shook his head. With this strength, how dare he act so presumptuous in front of him? I wonder if the people coming later will be more powerful if he is killed. Thinking of this, Xiaojian was a little distracted, and subconsciously slapped Shilong who rushed in front of him and flew away. Boom! A violent sound rang out. Everyone only felt a stream of air passing rapidly in front of them, bringing up a cloud of dust. Then, Shilong's figure disappeared into the wall. A big hole was smashed in the wall in front. It extended inward for an unknown distance. The breath also dissipated in an instant. Shilong died. The scene suddenly became quiet. Looking at the big hole in the wall smashed by Shilong, he fell into silence. Bu Jingyan closed his eyes. He dared to trouble Xiaojian with this level, he really didn't know how to write the word death. At the same time, he secretly rejoiced that he and Xiaojian were friends, not enemies. Murong Fu did not feel the slightest bit of surprise. He was just a 5th level grandmaster. It would be strange if Xiaojian could not beat him. However, did he think that beating a 5th level grandmaster would be the end of the matter? Murong Fu showed a hint of evil smile. It seemed that he had thought of a good idea. Shi Feishuan looked at Wan Wan with a dark face. If Wan Wan had not stopped her, she would have definitely stepped forward to stop Xiaojian. Shilong would not have died just like that. Wan Wan sighed helplessly. Oh, this Shilong is really useless. He boasted so much, but in the end he couldn't even force out Xiaojian's strength. She was so lucky that she was ready to watch the fun. In the end, Xiaojian just casually slapped the Shilong, and he was gone. Everyone around looked at Xiaojian in horror. No one dared to step forward to grab the Changshengju. Xiaojian looked at everyone with disdain and said indifferently, "There is not a single warrior in the Tang dynasty who can fight." Xiaojian also risked his life and directly sprayed the warriors of the entire Tang dynasty. Wow, everyone was angry at once. Nonsense. There are many talents in our Tang dynasty, and you are just a frog in the well. A mere grandmaster level, there are plenty in our Tang dynasty. The saint of Sihang Jingzai and the witch of Yinkui sect are no worse than you. Everyone immediately thought of Wanwan and the two people who were famous in the world. They are all descendants of the top forces in the Tang dynasty. They have already entered the grandmaster level at a young age. They are absolutely geniuses in the entire Tang dynasty. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan, who were praised by everyone, wished they could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. They knew Xiaojian's strength best, and it was definitely not something they could compare to. But now, Xiaojian has provoked the public indignation of the Tang dynasty warriors. They were forced to stand opposite Xiaojian. The two were really worried that Xiaojian would ignore their face and attack them. They were speechless to the people around them who were making trouble. But it was difficult to admit that they couldn't beat him. For a moment, the two were a little confused. Xiaojian turned his head to look at the two. There was a slight playful smile on the corner of his mouth. Wanwan shouted angrily, "Xiaojian, did you do this on purpose?" She was so happy to see Xiaojian. She wanted to talk to him about the past, but Xiaojian didn't give her face at all. He knew they were there, but he still embarrassed them. Xiaojian smiled faintly and said, "If you want to fight, you can do it together. As long as you can beat me, I will give you the Changshengju with both hands." Everyone's eyes were immediately on Wanwan and Shi Feishuan. The meaning was very clear, hoping that the two of them would restore the face of the Tang dynasty. In the back, Fu Junjuo looked at Xiaojian with a serious expression. She had no choice but to throw the Changshengju away just now. Now, she can be sure that it was Xiaojian who made trouble behind her just now. Except for him, no one else present had the strength. Looking at Xiaojian, Fu Junjuo was so angry that her teeth were itching. If there was a chance, she would definitely take action to snatch the Changshengju back. Wanwan looked indifferent and smiled at the crowd around her. "Did you hear that? They are the Jinyue of the Ming dynasty and look down on us. They asked us to attack together, so don't let them down. Let's attack together and take back the Changshengju." After that, Wanwan took the brunt and rushed towards Xiaojian. While shouting and killing, she secretly sent a message to Xiao Jian. Master Xiao, I am helping you, you have to be gentle. Wanwan was smart, although she didn't know what Xiao Jian's purpose was. But Xiao Jian was not such an arrogant person. This move must have a deep meaning. She asked people to attack together, which helped Xiao Jian in a way. Xiao Jian's eyes flashed, but he didn't reply. But when Wanwan attacked, he reduced the strength in his hands by 7 points. The two fought evenly. Good. The crowd cheered loudly when they saw that Wanwan and Xiao Jian had tied. Then they rushed forward in a swarm. A smile flashed across Xiao Jian's face. He fought back and forth with Wanwan, just like a sparring partner. He gave Wanwan some advice on martial arts. Bu Jingyan's cold face actually showed a smile. He suddenly remembered that when they were in Wushuang City, Xiao Jian had given him and Nifeng the same advice. He smiled knowingly and joined in. Shi Feishuan was not to be outdone and joined the battlefield. Her move made Fu Junzhuo in the back eager to move. Fu Junzhuo didn't know the real situation of Xiao Jian and the others. He just felt that there was an opportunity and he would not miss it. After arranging the Ko Zhang brothers, he joined the battle. Murong Fu gritted his teeth and rushed in. He knew that Xiao Jian was very powerful. But now that so many people are taking action, it is at least an opportunity. Even if Xiao Jian cannot be killed, it is good to be able to hurt him. With this mentality, Murong Fu went straight to Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian dealt with the attacks of everyone without any pressure. Suddenly saw Murong Fu also approaching. His face suddenly turned cold. Get out, he casually slapped out with a pinyin palm. Like a raging wave, Murong Fu was slapped out. He became the worst among the people who besieged Xiao Jian. Boom, Murong Fu hit the wall hard and smashed a wall into pieces. Puff, Murong Fu spit out a mouthful of blood and looked at Xiao Jian with a ferocious face. Xiao Jian was clearly targeting him. Others, those who were weaker than him were fine, and those who were about the same strength as him were also fine. Only he was slapped away as soon as he rushed in. Xiao Jian, you wait. Murong Fu glared at Xiao Jian viciously. Turn around and leave this place. Xiao Jian continued to absorb martial arts fragments in the fight with everyone. The prompt sound in his mind never stopped. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Tianmo strategy and automatically comprehending Tianmo strategy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Sihang sword cannon and automatically comprehending Sihang sword cannon. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 1-5. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 1-5. Although they are all some garbage martial arts, there are also some small amounts of internal force value. But so many people added together, it is not a small number. The harvest is barely enough. Xiao Jian has been playing with everyone like this. Gradually, as time goes by, everyone feels something is wrong. They will never hurt Xiao Jian a hair. And looking at Xiao Jian's appearance, he obviously still has strength to spare, but he has never been ruthless. At most, 1 or 2 people will be slightly injured occasionally. Clearly teasing them, everyone stopped with dark faces. They stared at Xiao Jian with anger, their eyes almost spitting fire. Asshole, this guy doesn't take us seriously. This is too much. A gentleman can be killed but not humiliated. This kid is too bad, his heart is black. I must ask my elders from the sect to come out. Everyone gnashed their teeth and denounced. Wanwan and the others were speechless when they saw this scene. But they didn't know what Xiao Jian was thinking, so they could only pretend that they knew nothing. Xiao Jian put his hands behind his back and looked down at everyone. The warriors of the Tang dynasty are really not that strong. I still say that, no matter how many warriors challenge the Grandmaster level, I will take them all. Which Grandmaster can beat me, the longevity secret will be his trophy. Xiao Jian's words pierced everyone's heart like a needle. They all cursed in their hearts. But they couldn't do anything to Xiao Jian, so they could only leave in disgrace. When everyone had almost left, Bu Jingyan came to Xiao Jian. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord Xiao, for saving my life." Xiao Jian waved his hand, looking nonchalant. "You don't have to thank me, I just want to deal with Shang Ba." Bu Jingyan nodded, but Xiao Jian's life-saving grace was remembered in his heart. Shi Feishuan walked up and asked in confusion, what is the purpose of Lord Xiao coming to the Tang dynasty? Xiao Jian's personality is too inconsistent with what he is doing now. Xiao Jian smiled faintly. Come to the Tang dynasty to make friends with martial arts. The Tang dynasty at this time, more precisely the Sui and Tang dynasties. The major forces divided the world. There are the Yuan clan, the Song clan, the Dugu clan, and Li Yuan, the Tang king who finally seized the world. The four major warlords are kings. There are also a large number of small forces distributed everywhere. In the rivers and lakes, there are countless sects. The righteous and evil sects headed by the Yingkui sect and Sihang Jingzai attack each other. And the Changshengju is what many of them want to get. The news that Xiao Jian got the Changshengju spread all over the world along with his wild words. All forces are very concerned about it. The Changshengju is related to the secret of longevity. Whether it is true or false, those in power will not let it go. Yuan, Li Tang and other forces sent their capable generals to snatch it. At the same time, there is also the purpose of defeating Xiao Jian and gaining fame. This is a matter of killing two birds with one stone. Since Xiao Jian got the secret of longevity, he stayed in Yangzhou. Many other martial artists were waiting to see the fun. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan stayed by Xiao Jian's side. Many people were jealous of them. Because of these two beauties, Xiao Jian could occasionally sense the killing intent from passers-by. In Yangzhou City, in a tea house on the road, Wanwan played with her hair and persuaded Xiao Jian. Sir Xiao, don't you consider staying here? Our Yingkui sect is very good, I think you are very suitable to stay. This made Shi Feishuan's face flushed with anger. She had known Wanwan's purpose for a long time. But she didn't expect that she was so bold and openly teased Xiao Jian in broad daylight. Xiao Jian smiled knowingly and nodded lightly. The Yingkui sect is really good. There are not so many rules, but unfortunately, your Yingkui sect is not suitable for me. His sight will never be limited to one sect. Not even to one country. What he pursues is absolute strength, which can allow him to roam freely throughout the entire continent. Grandmaster is not enough, and Grandmaster is not enough. Perhaps, only the immortals on land can do it. Xiao Jian looked ahead with deep eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. Suddenly, Xiao Jian looked into the distance. A domineering aura was released without any concealment. What is this? Shi Feishuan's eyes were filled with surprise. In her perception, this person seemed like a killing god, walking out of a sea of corpses and blood. The killing aura on his body was extremely strong. Yuan Chengdu, why is he here? Wanwan blurted out. Opening her mouth, she looked at the person in disbelief. This person was dressed in black and gold, with a square face. No one dared to stop him wherever he went. He is Yuan Chengdu. Interesting. Xiao Jian looked at Yuan Chengdu calmly. He didn't expect that the first opponent he met in the Tang dynasty was the famous Yuan Chengdu. As the pride of the Yuan family, he has already cultivated to the 8th level of the Grandmaster realm at the age of more than 30. It is indeed extraordinary, Shi Feishuan said anxiously. Xiao Jian, you have to be careful. It is rumored that Yuan Chengdu has cultivated the family martial arts, Xuanbing Jin, to the state of great success. Even a master at the peak of the Grandmaster level cannot easily win without mobilizing the power of heaven and earth. Xiao Jian nodded when he heard it. To be able to cultivate a martial art to great success, it is indeed a talent. Even Fengyan and the others have not yet cultivated their martial arts to great success. It is enough to prove how powerful Yuan Chengdu is. However, under Xiao Jian's guidance, the two are not far from the great success of martial arts. As for Marong Fu, he can cultivate Dozhuan Xingyi to great success. That's thanks to Xiao Jian. If it weren't for Xiao Jian, how could he be reborn from the ashes? Yuan Chengdu walked towards Xiao Jian with an indifferent expression. Behind him followed a large group of warriors who were watching the fun. This Ming Jinyue is going to be finished. Let him be arrogant, this time he met a master, right? I didn't expect that even Yuan Chengdu would come. He deserved to die. How many moves do you think he can block? I guess 3 moves. 1 move. Everyone laughed. Xiao Jian, who was sitting next to the tea house, showed disdain. A group of guys who bully the weak and fear the strong, also have the nerve to laugh at him. Fortunately, he is not a murderer, otherwise these people would have suffered. However, it is no problem to deal with them later. Take the opportunity to collect some martial arts fragments, kill two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Xiao Jian was in a good mood. Yuan Chengdu looked at Xiao Jian in front of him and said indifferently, the Jin Yue of the Ming dynasty. It is really not easy for a young man to have such strength. No wonder he dared to run here and act wild. Yuan Chengdu was amazed at the first sight of Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian is only 20 years old, but he has the third level of Grand Master cultivation. This is simply incredible. When he was Xiao Jian's age, he was still struggling in the Shantian realm. However, the more talented Xiao Jian is, the more he does not intend to let Xiao Jian go. Xiao Jian looked around and waved his hand and said, "You alone are not my opponent, wait a little longer." Anyway, after these days, the masters who should come should have arrived. It saves fighting one after another. It is the easiest to take them away in one wave. Yuan Chengdu's face suddenly darkened. What does it mean? Is this to look down on him and ask him to join others in attacking? You are really arrogant. Unfortunately, you have to have the capital to be arrogant. And you don't have that. Yuan Chengdu sneered and punched Xiao Jian. The might of the Grand Master of the 8th level suddenly burst out, making everyone present couldn't help but take a step back. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan immediately stepped back, although they are the descendants of the top forces in the martial arts world. But Yuan Chengdu is a child of a powerful family, and his status is not lower than theirs. Moreover, Yuan Chengdu's strength is much higher than theirs. Even if they want to help Xiao Jian, they can't help much. At most, they can use their background to make Yuan Chengdu hesitate. Xiao Jian saw Yuan Chengdu take action, and he still sat calmly on the chair in the tea house. He drank tea and watched Yuan Chengdu attack him. You are looking for death. Yuan Chengdu was furious. Let alone the Yuan clan behind him. Even his strength is enough to suppress one side. But what is Xiao Jian's attitude? He doesn't take him seriously at all. Does he want to fight him while drinking tea? Yuan Chengdu's mind moved, and a layer of light frost immediately appeared on his fist. The air of ice was pervasive, and everyone couldn't help shivering. Is this the Xuanbing Jin passed down by the Yuan family? The Xuanbing Jin of the Great Success realm is indeed extraordinary. I can feel the chill from such a distance. The kid from the Ming dynasty has angered Yuan Chengdu, and now he is going to become an ice sculpture. He is really looking for death. Everyone began to mock Xiao Jian. But Xiao Jian turned a deaf ear to him and just drank tea lightly. When Yuan Chengdu's fist came in front of him, Xiao Jian stretched out his right hand and squeezed it tightly. He looked up and sneered, "That's all." Yuan Chengdu's eyes were filled with shock. He was extremely confident in his own strength. He was definitely the best among the younger generation in the world. Even in front of the masters of the older generation, he was confident that he could compete with them. How could Xiao Jian, a third-level grandmaster, easily control him? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Yuan Chengdu was going crazy. He roared at Xiao Jian. Everyone around was stunned. Xiao Jian actually grabbed Yuan Chengdu with one hand, leaving him powerless to resist. What does this mean? It means that Xiao Jian's strength is far superior to Yuan Chengdu's. And it is many times higher than his. Everyone looked at each other and was a little worried about themselves. Just now, they had ridiculed Xiao Jian. If Xiao Jian retaliated, they would not be able to bear it. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan looked at each other and could clearly see the shock in each other's eyes. They knew Xiao Jian was very strong, but they had no clear idea of how strong he was. Until Yuan Chengdu appeared, they were shocked. Yuan Chengdu was a famous young master. In this era, there were not many young people who could match him. Xiao Jian could actually beat Yuan Chengdu. A third-level grandmaster beat an 8th-level grandmaster. I have never heard of a grandmaster who could fight so many levels higher. When it comes to acquired and innate skills, it is possible to jump 4 or 5 levels higher. They can do it too. But when it comes to the grandmaster level, each level is a world of its own. Only geniuses among geniuses can fight higher levels. They can jump 3 levels at most, which is already very remarkable. What about Xiao Jian? Judging from the current situation, maybe he can fight against the peak of the grandmaster. Thinking of this, both of them were scared and their hearts were in a mess. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of internal force value plus 150. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Schwanbingen, automatically comprehending Schwanbingen. Ding. Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Schwanbingen, martial arts experience value plus 100. Xiao Jian sighed. A Grandmaster level 8 could only provide him with this little. If you want to break through to the Grandmaster level, you have a long way to go. Shaking his head regretfully, he said, your strength is too weak, so you should wait for help. After that, he threw Yuan Chengdu out. Yuan Cheng was thrown out by Xiao Jian before he could react. He plowed a deep ditch in the ground and stopped dozens of meters away. Hiss. Everyone gasped and did not dare to look at Xiao Jian again. Next to the tea house, everyone was silent, and some even quietly stepped back. Ready to walk away, Xiao Jian saw this scene in his eyes and refilled himself a cup of tea. He said calmly, whoever dares to leave, I will break his legs. The sound was not loud, but it made those who wanted to run away no longer dare to move. The lifted feet were also quietly put back, a look of misery on his face. If I had known better, I wouldn't have said anything bad about Xiao Jian. Just for the sake of a quick talk, he actually brought himself in. I don't know what the consequences will be later. Xiao Jian even dared to fight Yuan Chengdu, let alone them. Maybe, even my life will be left behind. Just as Wanwan and Shi Feishuan were about to sit back down, a loud voice echoed in the air. Who is Xiao Jian, kid? Get out and die. A figure jumped on the roof and came straight towards the crowd. Boom. Song Shidao carried the sword on his back and dropped it suddenly in front of Xiao Jian. Looking directly into Xiao Jian's eyes, murderous intent was revealed. Xiao Jian frowned displeased and waved his hand. Sweep aside the dust it stirs up. Song Shidao's eyes turned around and paused when he saw the ravine on the ground. Then he turned his attention to Xiao Jian. Are you Xiao Jian, the Imperial Guard of the Ming Dynasty? You are so brave. You dare to challenge the world's masters. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to go back? Everyone looked at each other and gave Song Shidao a strange look. It's possible that they won't be able to go back, but it's hard to say who won't be able to go back. Sure enough, Xiao Jian didn't say a word and just raised his hand. The cloud-dispelling palm suddenly launched and blasted towards Song Shidao. The strong palm force caused a faint ripple in the air. That is the fluctuation caused by space. Song Shidao's pupils suddenly shrank, and he didn't even have time to pull out the sword behind him. Then he was blown away by Xiao Jian's palm. The man spat out blood in midair. After landing on the ground, he quickly slid backwards. It left a deep ravine in the ground. It didn't stop until it was about to hit Yuan Chengdu. When Song Shidao was about to stand up and fight back, his eyes almost fell out when he saw the embarrassed Yuan Chengdu. He hadn't looked into the ditch just now. Otherwise, Yuan Chengdu would not have been discovered. What's going on with you? As soon as Song Shidao said the words, he immediately reacted. The dignified son of the Yuan clan was treated like this in Yangzhou. Except for Xiao Jian, no one has this strength, and no one has this courage. That Xiao Jian is so strong, but you didn't even remind me. Song Shidao gritted his teeth and said. If Yuan Chengdu reminded him, he wouldn't have to be so embarrassed. We'll definitely proceed with caution. To this day, he still thinks he was too careless. He didn't even pull out the knife. The Song family who hold knives and the Song family who don't hold knives are two different things. The inheritance of Heavenly Sword Song Q's sword skills is enough to make their strength rampant in the same realm. Yuan Chengdu sneered. Remind you? If it were you, would you remind me? The two were about to stand up when another voice came from midair. Song Shidao, leave that Xiao Jian kid to me. Dugu Ce has just arrived in Yangzhou City. Hearing Song Shidao's voice echoing in the city, he hurried here. Yuan Chengdu and Song Shidao looked at each other with a smile on their lips. The two people who were about to stand up sat down in perfect agreement. The ravine was more than a foot deep after the two of them rubbed against each other. From the outside, not even the heads of the two men could be seen. Dugu Ce jumped down from the roof carelessly. Seeing the weird expressions of everyone present, I didn't think much about it. Arriving in front of Xiao Jian swaggeringly. Good boy, you are Xiao Jian. You are young and very courageous. How dare you challenge the world's great masters? It's a pity that you met me. Xiao Jian looked strange and glanced sideways at Dugu Ce. The cultivation level of the 6th level of the Grandmaster is not high, nor is it low. But in front of him, it was still not enough. Boy, hand over the secret of immortality. This is not something you can get your hands on. Dugu Ce stretched out his big hand and hit Xiao Jian in front of the door. A playful smile appeared on Xiao Jian's lips. If you want the secret of immortality, you have to rely on your strength to get it. Dugu Ce laughed and put his hands on his hips. Isn't my strength enough? Everyone's mouths twitched wildly, and they couldn't help but look at the two people in the gully. Xiao Jian said with a smile, how about you ask those two if you are strong enough? Dugu Ce looked puzzled, wondering who the two people Xiao Jian was talking about were. However, he soon found out. Xiao Jian's right palm flashed with dark golden light. A sudden pressure appeared, making Dugu Ce freeze up. He looked at Xiao Jian in horror. Xiao Jian's palm, emitting a dark golden light, was quickly smacked towards him. In desperation, Dugu Ce only had time to cross his arms to protect his chest. Then he was slapped away by Xiao Jian. Seeing Dugu Ce rubbing rapidly on the ground, the corners of everyone's mouths couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 91. Again, Dugus kept rubbing the ground for tens of meters, deepening the ravine by a notch before he stopped. Bah, this kid is so ruthless. Dugu Ce cursed and yelled, rubbing his stuffy chest. In all his life, he has never suffered such a big loss. Just as he was about to get up, Dugu suddenly turned around when he noticed someone behind him. Yuan Chengdu and Song Shidao were sitting at the bottom of the ravine with comfortable expressions on their faces. He just looked a little embarrassed and disgraced. What's going on with you two? Song Shidao waved his hand, looking nonchalant. It's okay, just sit here and take a rest. Dugu Ce looked at the ravine in front of him, and then at the embarrassed appearance of the two people. His face turned black. He is not stupid. He has no idea why these two people are sitting here. Grandma, since you two guys know that kid is Xiaohu, why don't you remind me? Dugu Ce is so angry. After being beaten into such a miserable state by a boy from the Ming dynasty, how could he see anyone in the future? Song Shidao sneered. What did you say? You will believe as if we tell you. Dugu Ce's expression froze, and the muscles on his face twitched violently. With his character, he really wouldn't believe it. Yuan Chengdu patted his sleeves and was about to stand up when he was caught by Dugu Ce. He winked and said, wait a minute, Li Tang's people are coming soon. It's not convenient for us to meet people like this. The three of them looked at each other and understood instantly. When Dugu Ce came, he had already seen Li Tang's people at the city gate. It was Li Yuan's cousin who came, known as Li Shentong. He is a man of justice and wealth, and has a good reputation in the world. Unfortunately, several people are in a different camp from him. Naturally, I won't remind you kindly. After Dugu Ce was shot away by Xiao Jian, Li Shentong came over immediately. He was wearing armor and was followed by dozens of soldiers from the military camp. Originally, he was guarding the city near Yangzhou City. When I heard the news about Xiao Jian and the secret of immortality, I couldn't sit still. He didn't care whether he was immortal or not. But Xiao Jian actually dared to make noise in his territory of Datang, which he couldn't stand. So I immediately brought people over. Along the way, he saw many martial arts masters rushing this way. Even at the gate of the city, I saw Dugu Ce from the Dugu family. He didn't want Dugu Ce to rush ahead of him. Then he hurriedly ran to Xiao Jian. Looking around at the crowd of people watching, Li Shenqing felt a little weird. Everyone looked a little weird, and why was there such a deep ditch on the ground? Before he could figure out the situation, Xiao Jian asked, which force are you from? Li Shentong glanced at Xiao Jian with disdain on his face. Xiao Jian is only 20 years old, but he has the cultivation level of a 3rd level master. It is indeed good, but unfortunately, in front of Li clan, it is nothing at all. His cultivation level is much higher than his. Li Shentong turned around and saw no one, so he asked Xiao Jian directly. Boy, I just saw that guy Dugus coming this way. Where is he? Xiao Jian smiled faintly, are you looking for him? Then I will send you to see him. After saying that, his figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Li Shentong. He kicked Li Shentong hard in the abdomen. Li Shentong was only at the 3rd level of a grandmaster, so he couldn't react. He was kicked out directly, pushed all the way along the ravine on the ground. He suddenly slipped in front of the Yuan Chengdu trio. As for the dozens of sergeants brought by Li Shentong, they were of no use at all on this occasion. He watched helplessly as his general was kicked out by Xiao Jian. Li Shentong stared angrily. Xiao Jian's kick did not seriously injure him, but the armor on his body was worn to pieces. The whole person looked embarrassed. "You fool, look at how your grandpa manipulates you." Li Shentong roared so loudly that the soil above him trembled. "Okay, what's his name? If you want to control him, you have to see if you have the strength." Song Shidao sneered, startling the roaring Li Shentong. He yelled a little embarrassed. "Song Shidao, Yuan Chengdu, Dugu Ce, why are you three here?" Now was the time when he was most embarrassed, but he was seen by people from 3 other families. At least it makes people laugh. "That's not right, you 3. Li Shentong pointed at the 3 of them in astonishment, and then looked at his own appearance. React all at once. These 3 people must have been dealt with. It's so heartbreaking. The 3 of them were taken care of without even reminding him. It caused him to lose such a big person. Li Shentong's face turned red with anger. "I wish I could kill 3 people with 1 palm. What the hell, the heart is black." Dugus laughed. "Behind these 4 people are the biggest influencers today. If everyone is embarrassed, that means no one is embarrassed. As for the others, who dares to laugh at their 4 great clans?" Yuan Chengdu looked solemn and said, "Now is not the time to quarrel. Let's deal with Xiao Jian together first." The other 3 nodded. All 4 people have experienced Xiao Jian's strength. Although he was a 3rd level grandmaster, his real combat power was not something they could easily deal with. The 4 of them slowly stood up from the ravine and walked slowly towards Xiao Jian. Song Shidao stretched out his right hand, and the big knife appeared in his hand. A chilling air permeated his body. The other 3 are no exception. Those who have weapons use weapons, and those without weapons directly release their momentum. In an instant, the atmosphere in the venue became solemn. Song Shidao said proudly, "Xiao Jian, we didn't show any real strength just now. Now let's show you our true strength." Xiao Jian had a smile on his lips and said lightly, "I guess so. After all, you are also respectable people. It would be boring if you defeated them with just 1 move. No need to say more, the 4 of you come together." The faces of the 4 people were dark, and the murderous aura emanating from their bodies made the people around them feel chilled. Xiao Jian, however, stood there straight as if nothing was wrong. His eyes jokingly said, "You 4 are really no match for me. Let's go together to save trouble." What he said was the truth, but in everyone's ears, he seemed very arrogant. Song Shidao's tone was cold. "In that case, the 4 of us will ask you for your advice." After saying that, the 4 of them looked at each other and quickly killed Xiao Jian. The people of the 4 gates each have their own unique skills. Song Shidao's sword skills were inherited from Song Ke, the heavenly sword. The 8 heavenly sword techniques are extremely domineering, and their reputation resounds throughout the world. The heavenly sword technique that has been baptized by the battle array contains extremely cruel murderous intent. Ordinary people might not even have the courage to take action when facing Song Shidao. The other people's martial arts also have great backgrounds. Moreover, all 4 of them are at the Grandmaster level. The lowest Li Shentong is already at the 3rd level of the Grandmaster realm. The power of the 4 of them increased greatly. Shi Feishuan looked nervously at Xiao Jian on the battlefield, her eyes full of worry. "Let Wanwan have a good laugh. You also said you don't like him. Why are you so anxious?" Master Fei Zan rolled her eyes at Wanwan. Sihang Jingzai has extremely strict control over the relationship between men and women. Moreover, she is a holy lady. How can she be like Wanwan and say whatever she wants? I can only suppress myself as much as possible. Wanwan sighed and said, "Why are you worried about him? His strength now is unfathomable. Besides, when have you ever seen him do something he wasn't sure about?" Hearing this, Shi Feizan was relieved. But I was still very confused. Why did Xiao Jian do this? If it was for the longevity secret, he had already obtained it. "You can return to Daming at any time. By that time, no one can do anything to him. There is really no need to provoke many people in the martial arts world. Even 4 gate valves. Seeing Xiao Jian confronting the 4 great masters, Shi Feizan's eyes lit up. Could it be that Xiao Jian wanted to secretly learn martial arts from other sects? Xiao Jian showed great talent in the first few times they met. As long as it is a martial skill that others have used in front of him, Xiao Jian can learn it secretly. Then he provoked a fight with everyone. Apart from secretly learning martial arts, she couldn't think of any other reason. Shi Feishuan looked at the people on the battlefield with strange eyes. I saw Song Shidao slashing down with his sword, the energy of the sword extending across tens of meters. With unstoppable power, Xiao Jian nodded, eyes brightened a little. Then he used his palm as a knife, and a flame rose up from his right palm. The invisible sword energy went towards Song Shidao. Laugh. The 2 sword chi collided, and Song Shidao's sword chi was easily torn into 2 halves. Xiao Jian's flame knife was just a little slower and continued to move towards Song Shidao. How can this be? Song Shidao almost screamed. The palm of his hand turned into a knife, and the sword energy he produced was even sharper than his heavenly sword technique. Unless Xiao Jian's strength far exceeds his. Or maybe Xiao Jian's sword skills are more powerful than the heavenly sword skills. The sword technique of heavenly sword is the best sword technique in the world. Naturally, he didn't believe that Xiao Jian had more powerful sword and martial arts skills. The only explanation is that Xiao Jian is stronger than him, much stronger. Song Shidao didn't have time to think too much and swung the sword in his hand again. Only then did Xiao Jian's sword energy disappear completely. While Song Shidao took action, the other 3 were not idle either. They all used their own tricks. But Xiao Jian gave each of them a powerful Vajra palm, slapping the 3 people away. The 3 of them spit out a mouthful of blood in midair and looked at Xiao Jian in horror. 4 people besieged him, and only Song Shidao was not injured. But Xiao Jian was shocked. He looked warily at Xiao Jian, who looked calm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragments of the heavenly sword technique and automatically comprehending the heavenly sword technique. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the fragment of Zan Bing Jin. The experience value is plus 100. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal energy fragments, the internal energy value is plus 150. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force fragments, the internal force value plus 100. Xiao Jian frowned. Neither can these 4 people. Except for the skill of the heavenly sword, which is somewhat impressive, the other martial arts skills are not very good. The internal strength value and experience value provided are only so much. Xiao Jian turned his head and looked at the crowd watching the excitement. Most of them are Zhonghu people. There are almost hundreds of people. The quality is a bit poor, so we can only rely on quantity. Xiao Jian's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a trace of disdain. You are just this little bit capable, and it's not enough. What 4 major clans, it's really a joke. Xiao Jian's words completely broke the defense of the 4 people. This is no longer a matter for the 4 of them, but a matter of the reputation of their 4 major clans. They can lose, but the face of the 4 major clans cannot be lost. Kill! The 4 people roared and continued to kill Xiao Jian. Boom! The battle between the 5 grandmasters made the entire battlefield shrouded in smoke and dust. The rapidly moving figures made everyone dazzled. Suddenly, a person in the battlefield was smashed out fiercely. A deep pit was smashed on the ground with a puff. Yuan Chengdu wiped his swollen mouth corners and couldn't help but gasp. This kid is really ruthless. After saying that, he rushed in angrily. Not long after, another figure smashed out. This time it was Song Shidao. There was a bloody cut on his chest. It was obviously caused by Xiao Jian's invisible sword energy. This young master doesn't believe it. 4 people can't beat a Ming boy. Song Shidao gritted his teeth and rushed into the battlefield. The people present looked at the battlefield for a while, and then looked at the figure that was smashed out. His head swayed from side to side, which was obviously very funny. Wan saw several people being blasted out from time to time, and smiled. Did you see it? I said he would be fine. Since the Shantian realm, Xiao Jian's strength has never disappointed her. Pushing all the way, killing gods and Buddhas. Wanwan's eyes were sparkling. Xiao Jian was really a good husband for Wanwan. It was just a matter of drawing. Shi Feishuan nodded. Her eyes were bright. A smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. In the battlefield, Xiao Jian looked free and easy. He used various martial arts such as the Vajrapam in various ways. He made the 4 people suffer. Even though they had used all their strength, they still couldn't touch a corner of Xiao Jian's clothes. Dugu Ce was the first to give up. He jumped out of the battle circle. He covered his chest with his left hand and his forehead with his right hand. He cursed carelessly. What kind of fight is this? I have never been so frustrated. The opponent's realm was obviously only the 3rd level of the Grandmaster, but he felt like he was facing the peak of the Grandmaster. No, it was more uncomfortable than the peak of the Grandmaster. Look at the big footprint on his chest and the big red bump on his forehead. The son of his Dugu family has never suffered such a big loss. Without Dugu Ce, the remaining 3 people could not stop him. In the blink of an eye, they were all blown away by Xiao Jian. Yuan Chengdu's face was red and he was so angry that he cursed. Dugu Ce, what are you doing? You actually ran away from the battle. The 4 of them couldn't stop them, so they ended up running away to Dugu's halfway. The 3 of them were implicated quite a lot. Look at how they were beaten. Their faces were either bruised or purple, or they had big footprints all over their bodies. He doesn't look like a young master from an aristocratic family. Song Shidao covered his chest, gritted his teeth and said angrily to Dugu Ce, if you escape from the battlefield, you should be pulled out and beheaded. The 4 of them took action together, and Dugu Ce escaped from the battlefield. As a result, the remaining 3 people were beaten by Xiao Jian until their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. It made them want to kill Dugu Ce first. Dugu Ce is also aggrieved. Pointing at Xiao Jian with anger on his face, he said, look at that boy, he didn't use his full strength at all. He is playing with us, even if we fight together, we are definitely not his opponent. Hearing Dugu Ce's words, several people felt stuffy in their chests. But they couldn't say anything. After all, they have also experienced Xiao Jian's strength. Based on their strength, they are indeed no match for Xiao Jian. Yuan Chengdu's face was livid, and he turned his head to look around. Just happened to see Wanwan and Shi Feishuan who were watching the show on the side. He rolled his eyes and said loudly, you two, this boy is not only provoking our 4 major families, but also the people in the martial arts world. Aren't you two going to take action? Wanwan heard the words and said in a delicate voice, Yuan Chengdu, you can't beat him, and we weak women are even less of a match. She is not that stupid. If she helps Yuan Chengdu fight Xiao Jian and really hurts Xiao Jian, she will be distressed. Yuan Chengdu snorted coldly and stared at the 2 people unkindly. The aristocratic families and the martial arts world seemed to be indifferent now. However, when the world is unified, the martial arts world will be their biggest concern. But before that, if it is not necessary, he does not want to offend the people in the martial arts world. Shi Feishuan pulled Wanwan's sleeve and said in a voice transmission, Xiao Jian may be secretly learning their martial arts, let's go up and help. She was worried that Xiao Jian had not learned at all. It was just right to go up with Yuan Chengdu and others, so that Xiao Jian would have more time to secretly learn. Maybe, he can really learn the martial arts of Song Shidao and others. Whether it is Xuanbing Jin or Tiandao Daofa, they are all top martial arts in the martial arts world. It is a big profit to learn a move or 2. Learn martial arts secretly. Wanwan almost screamed. Then she thought of Xiao Jian's evil talent, and her eyes began to roll. Her pretty face changed slightly, and she shouted at Yuan Chengdu, seeing you are so pitiful, I will help you. The 2 looked at each other and flashed to the side of the 4 people. Seeing that Wanwan and the others were willing to help, Yuan Chengdu and the others breathed a sigh of relief. No matter how strong Xiao Jian was, he was only a 3rd-level Grandmaster. And Wanwan and Shi Feishuan were both from famous families. Their strength was extraordinary, enough to be on par with ordinary 3rd-level Grandmaster warriors. It was also a great help to them. Xiao Jian had a smile on his lips. He looked at the 6 people opposite with a calm expression. Xiao Jian, you have to be gentle, we too are here to help you. Wanwan hurriedly sent a message to Xiao Jian. She didn't want to be beaten black and blue by Xiao Jian. That would be so ugly. Xiao Jian's eyes moved and he nodded secretly. No matter what Wanwan and the others' purpose was, as long as the battle continued, it would be to help him. Go! Yuan Chengdu roared and rushed up first. The mysterious ice power made his whole body emit an icy aura. Song Shidao was not to be outdone, and the big knife in his hand stimulated a sword energy of dozens of meters. He suddenly chopped down on Xiao Jian's head. Everyone showed their strengths, as if they were going to kill Xiao Jian. That's interesting. Xiao Jian smiled faintly. The star gauze dress on his body slowly emerged. Yuan Chengdu punched Xiao Jian in the chest. But Xiao Jian seemed to ignore it. Looking for death. Yuan Chengdu was furious. How much he looked down on him. He actually let him attack. After all, he was also a supermaster of the 8th level of the Grandmaster. A well-known existence in the martial arts world. Yuan Chengdu's internal force was concentrated on his fist. The cold air became more terrifying. If it hit him, even the peak of the Grandmaster would not be able to survive. Xiao Jian did not even look at Yuan Chengdu, but looked up at the sword energy of dozens of meters in the air. Then, he swung his right hand in the shape of a knife. Invisible waves flashed and appeared in front of Song Shidao in an instant, making him flustered. The rest of the people attacked desperately. Create an opportunity for Yuan Chengdu. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan frowned slightly. But seeing the faint smile on Xiao Jian's lips, they were relieved. Knowing that Xiao Jian must have some strength left. Humph, you made me worry, let me teach you a lesson. The two looked at each other and gritted their teeth secretly. Instead, they used their best tricks. For a while, the battlefield centered on Xiao Jian was filled with terrible waves. Xiao Jian carefully controlled his strength to a level that a few people could barely block. Fighting back and forth with everyone. With the help of everyone, Yuan Chengdu came straight to Xiao Jian. Looking at Xiao Jian who was restrained by everyone, Yuan Chengdu laughed. Xiao Jian, today is your death. After saying that, he punched Xiao Jian's chest fiercely. It can be predicted that if Xiao Jian is hit by the punch, he will be seriously injured if not dead. Xiao Jian looked at Yuan Chengdu with amusement, and did not even block it. Let him punch down. The strong internal force was absorbed by Xingqianga's clothes like mud flowing into the sea. Not only that, Xiao Jian also absorbed the attacks of the other people into his body in an instant. Changed the direction and released it. The faces of the people who were caught off guard changed. They all pulled back. Dugu Ce cursed. Li Shentong, you are blind, you hit the wrong person. He was almost beaten by Li Shentong. What a pig teammate. Wanwan looked at Xiao Jian hesitantly. Just now, she was attacked by Sihang Jingzai's swordsmanship. What's going on? She didn't believe that Shi Feishuan would attack her for no reason. Shi Feishuan also looked at Wanwan in confusion. Both of them had doubts in their eyes. The others started to curse each other with dark faces. Yuan Chengdu, do you want to die? Song Shidao gritted his teeth to expel the coldness in his body. He was only concerned with dealing with Xiao Jian just now, and never thought that he would be attacked by Yuan Chengdu's coldness. Yuan Chengdu looked unfriendly. I haven't settled accounts with you yet. Why are you chopping me with a knife? As soon as the words came out of their mouths, they felt something was wrong. Their target was Xiao Jian, and they knew whether they attacked others or not. If one person said this, it might be someone's doing something bad. But now that everyone said this, there was a problem. Wanwan suddenly screamed, Dozhuan Xingyi. It's the Dozhuan Xingyi of the Morong family. When she was in Bili, she had seen Morong Fu use Dozhuan Xingyi. In addition, she had been traveling in Daming for more than a year, and she knew the ability of Dozhuan Xingyi clearly. Shi Feishuan opened her mouth wide and stared at Xiao Jian in a daze. The relationship between Morong Fu and Xiao Jian was known to everyone in the Ming dynasty. Morong Fu would definitely not teach Dozhuan Xingyi to Xiao Jian. The only possibility was that Xiao Jian was really stealing martial arts. And he succeeded. Now, Shi Feishuan just wanted to know how many martial arts Xiao Jian knew. Xiao Jian had already used the 3 unique skills of the Tianxia Association. And he was better at it than the 3 hall masters of the Tianxia Association. And there was the 18 dragon subduing palms, which was Xiao Feng's unique martial arts. When in Bili, Xiao Jian used this move to deal with Zan Ku. In the end, he killed Zan Ku. As for other martial arts, Shi Feishuan didn't know. However, Xiao Jian probably knew them. Those who had fought with Xiao Jian, would their martial arts also be learned by Xiao Jian? This was not impossible. The more Shi Feishuan thought about it, the more he felt that Xiao Jian was unfathomable. Yuan Chengdu and the others were disgusted. They were obviously fighting against Xiao Jian, but they had to guard against being accidentally injured by their teammates. How to fight this? Du Gusi said angrily. Any martial arts has a limit, and his is the same. I don't believe that we can't even break his defense with our combined efforts. Song Shidao nodded. Yes, if we can't win even if we attack together, then if it gets out, we won't be human anymore. After saying that, Song Shidao flashed and slashed at Xiao Jian. Du Gusi and his men followed him. Shi Feishuan and Wan Wan looked at each other and smiled helplessly. Perhaps they really can't break Xiao Jian's defense. Isn't it because of Dozhuan Xingyi that Marongfu can have such a great reputation in the Ming dynasty? Moreover, any martial arts will always become unexpectedly stronger in Xiao Jian's hands. This is the case with the Vajra Palm, and Dozhuan Xingyi is no exception. Xiao Jian didn't ask them to stop, so they had to continue. Looking at the few people who tried desperately to break the starry gauze clothes, Xiao Jian looked calm. When he was at the first level of Grandmaster Realm, this starry gauze dress could defend against ordinary attacks from Grandmaster Peak Realm. Now he is at the third level of Grandmaster Realm. Even a Grandmaster Peak Realm being would not be able to break his defense. Even if he mobilized the power of heaven and earth, he might not be able to do it. Not to mention the people in front of him. Xiao Jian perfunctorily fought with them. While looking at his attribute panel. Name: Xiao Jian. Age: 17. Skills: the first chapter of the Divine Elephant Prison Power, 660 Giant Elephant Particles. Can condense the spear of the underworld god. Martial arts: Great Power Vajra Palm, Great Battle Star Shift, Great Wind God Leg, Great Cloud Palm, Minor Heaven Frost Fist, Minor Heart Demon Attraction, Minor Dragon Subduing 18 Palms, Minor North Sea Divine Art, Minor Flame Knife, Minor Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist, Minor Kasaya Subduing Demon Art, Minor Chess Sword, Minor Heaven Sword. Martial Arts Experience Value: 3040. Internal Force Value: 4300. Not much, but it's okay. A gleam of brilliance flashed in Xiao Jian's pupils. Looking at Song Shidao who kept slashing, he smiled meaningfully. Then, in Song Shidao's horrified eyes, his right palm turned into a knife, and suddenly swung out 100-meter-long knife energy. The white knife energy was like a river, surging and rushing. Suddenly turned into an arc, wrapping up the few people who were attacking frantically. Boom! The 6 people who were caught off guard were all blown away by the sudden appearance of the knife energy. It fell to the ground, creating a pit several meters deep. Wan Wan and Shi Feishuan struggled to get up, with a look of resentment on their faces. In their opinion, they came to help Xiao Jian. If it weren't for them, would Xiao Jian have so much time to secretly learn martial arts? What was the result? As soon as Xiao Jian learned it, he stabbed them back. The two were very aggrieved. He looked at Xiao Jian angrily. Du Gusi got up and cursed at the first time. Song Shidao, you fool, what are you crazy about? This Tiandao sword technique is the most domineering. When the sword energy and murderous energy enter the body, they will entangle the 8 meridians in the body. Over time, it will even damage the foundation of the warrior. It is not easy to completely clear the sword energy. Song Shidao seemed not to hear what Du Gusi said. He stared blankly in the direction of Xiao Jian, and his lips stammered twice. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Du Gusi saw this and reacted. He looked at Xiao Jian, then at Song Shidao. His eyeballs almost fell out. Was the heavenly sword chi just now slashed out by Xiao Jian? Yuan Chengdu looked solemn and asked in a deep voice, Xiao Jian, how do you know the heavenly sword technique? Xiao Jian smiled faintly. It's just the heavenly sword technique. Is it difficult to learn? You can learn it after just one look. Xiao Jian said it easily, but Yuan Chengdu didn't believe it at all. There are so many people in the Song family, and those who can learn the heavenly sword technique are all gifted. They only have the opportunity to learn it under the careful teaching of heavenly sword Song Ke. And what about Xiao Jian? He has no relatives or friends with the Song family, so how could Song Ke teach him the sword technique? The only explanation is that Xiao Jian did learn it secretly just now. But this is too scary. Several people also figured it out and changed their faces. This is impossible, I don't believe it. Song Shidao roared, exuding a strong murderous and tyrannical aura. He swung his sword and chopped at Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian smiled and looked at Song Shidao indifferently. This heavenly sword technique is the foundation of the Song family, and it must not be leaked. That's why Song Shidao lost his composure and even his mind, wanting to kill Xiao Jian on the spot. The sharp sword energy whistled. The sound of breaking through the air was heard throughout Yangzhou City. Xiao Jian looked at the sword energy, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip. When the sword energy was about to hit him, he gently waved his right hand. The sword energy, which was 100 meters long, rose into the air. It collided with Song Shidao's sword energy. The space became distorted under the attack of the two swords. However, Song Shidao's sword energy only lasted for one breath. It dissipates into nothingness. But Xiao Jian's sword energy only weakened by 3 points and continued to move towards the master's path. Song Shidao saw that his attack was defeated, his mind was calmed, and he froze on the spot. Careful, Yuan Chengdu shouted and hurriedly punched out, and then the sword energy was dispersed. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan looked at each other. He showed an expression that was true. Xiao Jian is not giving people a way to survive. He stole someone's martial arts skills and defeated the original master. If it had been anyone else, their mentality would have collapsed. Murong Fu's stupid look at that time is still vivid in my mind. Song Shidao came back to his senses, staring at Xiao Jian with bloodshot eyes, as if he wanted to eat someone. It took a long time for Song Shidao to recover. Staring at Xiao Jian, he said meaningfully, "We only had one fight, and you have learned my Song family's heavenly sword technique. What about other people's martial arts? Have you also learned them?" Xiao Jian almost gave Song Shidao a thumbs up on the spot. This guy is smart enough. He actually knows how to build momentum, which is really not easy. If Xiao Jian only learned the sword skills of his Song family, then this matter would only be a matter for the Song family. However, when Song Shidao said this, what did other people think? Have their martial arts been learned by Xiao Jian? The faces of the people in Yuan Chengdu changed instantly, and they looked at Xiao Jian with extremely dangerous eyes. Xiao Jian smiled lightly. "It's just a mere martial arts. I watched it once and learned it almost exactly." Everyone's faces turned green. Their martial arts secrets are usually regarded as their lifeblood. Don't even think about taking a look at it. It turned out to be good now. Xiao Jian learned everything. Suddenly, murderous intent arose in the field. Even some warriors who were watching the excitement couldn't sit still. They all came forward and scolded Xiao Jian. "Xiao Jian, if you secretly learn our martial arts, you are asking for death. How could my sect's secret knowledge fall into the hands of Ming Dynasty? Yes, if you give up your martial arts, maybe we can spare you a way to live. This person secretly learned martial arts and has evil intentions. He must be killed to avoid future troubles." As one person after another complained, Wanwan and Shi Feishuan also panicked. Although the realm of these people is not high, but they represent the vast majority of people and forces in the world of martial arts in this country. There are countless sects behind them. Even though Wanwan and Shi were from two of the top martial arts forces, they definitely didn't want to go against so many people in the world. We can only wait and see how things develop. But seeing Xiao Jian's eyes getting brighter and brighter, the two of them felt relieved a little. Xiao Jian did not show any fear, but instead said provocatively, "If you want to kill me, it depends on your ability. Let's do it together." The light words completely angered everyone. "Kill!" Yuan Chengdu roared, kicking off the war. Behind him were not only Du Guxi and the others, but also many warriors around him. One by one, they charged towards Xiao Jian angrily. Xiao Jian is not used to them either. Long-range attack, blocked by Xingchenshei. For the approaching masters, Xiao Jian used their unique martial arts. Use Zan Bingjin to deal with Yuan Chengdu, and use the heavenly sword technique to deal with Song Shidao. It's simply arrogant. Several people's noses were almost crooked with anger. Xiao Jian is killing someone and killing his heart. Use their martial arts skills to deal with them. More importantly, they are not Xiao Jian's opponents yet. He was beaten to a terrible state. In the surrounding alleys, Fu Junjuo looked complicated as he looked at Xiao Jian, who was under siege. She had lost the secret of immortality, so she naturally wanted to get it back. And now is the best time. With the strength shown by Xiao Jian, if she faced Xiao Jian alone, it would be impossible to retrieve the secret of immortality. After hesitating for a long time, Fu Junjuo gritted his teeth and said to Ko Zhang and Ko Zhang beside him, "You guys stay here and don't move. I'll go get the secret of immortality." After saying that, Fu Junjuo rushed into the battle circle. Shi Feishuan and Wanwan were both shocked. Is Xiao Jian preparing to challenge the entire world of warriors? Looking at Xiao Jian, who was able to navigate the battle circle with ease, Wanwan smiled and said, "It seems that Xiao Jian's strength has not been fully unleashed yet. Do you want to see where his limits are?" Concubine Zan was stunned. "You can't be." Wanwan nodded. "I want to see how strong he is now." After saying that, Wanwan stepped forward and joined the battle circle. A flash of light flashed through Shi Feishuan's beautiful eyes. Seeing Xiao Jian killing everyone, he also rushed in. Suddenly, there were more than 10 grandmasters in the field, all attacking Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian is not afraid of anyone who comes. All warriors who are close to him will use the same moves to fight with them. He also started to give advice to everyone. "Yuan Chengdu, your Xuanbing strength is not perfect. You should use your internal power to communicate with the spiritual energy between heaven and earth, and transport water vapor to melt ice. This will definitely greatly increase your attack power, and you may even become a great master. And Song Shidao, your heavenly sword technique has more than enough murderous aura, but lacks a kind of kingly aura. The sword is the king of all weapons. When you can comprehend this, your sword technique will be able to improve further." Yuan Chengdu looked at Xiao Jian with disdain. A dying man actually wanted to guide them. This is too ridiculous. They have practiced their martial arts for many years, don't they know what the problem is? Even if they don't understand something, it's not Xiao Jian's turn to teach them. Do you really think that you can surpass them by stealing 2 moves? Yuan Chengdu didn't take it seriously, but Song Shidao was different. Hearing Xiao Jian's words, he was shocked. When he was at home, Tiandao Song Ke once said something similar. But he didn't understand it very well. Today, Xiao Jian demonstrated to him while talking, which made him suddenly enlightened. When the big knife in his hand was swung, there was no such strong murderous aura. Instead, there was a kind of magnificent power. Boom! The 100-meter-long sword energy fell with a bang, scaring everyone. They all dodged and retreated. Xiao Jian smiled and nodded. The sword energy in his right hand chopped out. The 2 sword chi actually fought evenly. This is also because Xiao Jian did not upgrade the heavenly sword technique. Otherwise, his sword chi would be more than 100 meters long. Song Shidao showed a happy expression, and his eyes looking at Xiao Jian were full of complexity. His sword technique has been perfected. It took him nearly 10 years to take this step. If he hadn't realized it, he might even have to wait another 10 years. It can be said that he owed Xiao Jian a huge favor. Yuan Chengdu's mouth twitched. What is this? Song Shidao's martial arts realm actually broke through. Or he broke through under Xiao Jian's teaching. In other words, what Xiao Jian said just now was true. Thinking of this, he even had the urge to curse. What is Xiao Jian's? Must he stab their hearts over and over again? Song Shidao, don't forget that Xiao Jian secretly learned the heavenly sword technique. If the heavenly sword senior knew about it, he would definitely not let him go. Yuan Chengdu shouted loudly, afraid that Song Shidao would withdraw from the battlefield because of Xiao Jian's kindness. It was already difficult for them to deal with Xiao Jian, and if Song Shidao withdrew, there would be no hope. Song Shidao nodded and bowed to Xiao Jian. Sorry, Master Xiao. In the face of right and wrong, the children of these noble families are very clear. The interests of the noble families are more important than anything else. All personal feelings must be compromised. Xiao Jian waved his hand indifferently. He pointed out the crowd, just to attract more hatred. As for human feelings, he didn't care at all. When the time comes, he will leave here. Wanwan smiled. Don't miss this opportunity, maybe you will be the next one to break through martial arts. After that, Wanwan took the lead and attacked Xiao Jian. The eyes of the others lit up at once. Anyway, Xiaojian has learned their martial arts. What will happen to him is not something any of them can decide. It is better to get some benefits for themselves. If they can get Xiaojian's guidance in this battle, their martial arts will be perfected. That would be a huge profit. After figuring this out, everyone rushed towards Xiaojian. However, the purpose this time was a little different. The style of the painting changed completely. Everyone shouted while attacking, hoping to attract Xiaojian's attention. Xiaojian, take my Chenkin finger. Look at my Buddha's light. Look at me, my Sealing Demon Overlord sword technique. Xiaojian accepted everyone and responded with their moves. No matter how many people they had, no matter what martial arts they used, Xiaojian could use their martial arts very skillfully. He even gave them guidance. At the end of the fight, Yuan Chengdu simply gave up struggling. Standing quietly outside the battle circle, there were several grandmasters who were similar to him. As grandmasters, they also had to save face. It was fine if they couldn't beat him, but they couldn't afford to ask Xiaojian for advice. Finally, after half a day, the crowd that was besieging Xiaojian stopped. They all stopped and surrounded Xiaojian without attacking him. Xiaojian smiled and glanced at his attribute panel. Name: Xiaojian. Age: 17. Skills: the first chapter of the Divine Elephant Prison Power, 660 Giant Elephant Particles. Can condense the spear of the Underworld God. Martial Arts: Great Power Vajra Palm, Great Battle Star Shift, Great Wind God Leg, Great Cloud Palm, Minor Frost Fist, Minor Heart Demon Attraction, Minor Dragon Subduing Palm, Minor North Sea Divine Art, Minor Flame Knife, Minor Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist, Minor Kasaya Subduing Demon Art, Minor Chess Sword Art, Minor Heaven Sword Knife Art. Martial Arts Experience Value: 9,040. Internal Force Value: 12,300. This harvest can be said to be quite good. The internal force value is enough for him to upgrade to the next level. And the martial arts experience value can also greatly improve the Divine Elephant Prison Power. The power of the Divine Elephant Spear will definitely increase greatly. Maybe it can also unlock the second level of the Divine Elephant Prison Power, the Devil's Wings. The flying skill condensed by internal force. It has never been heard of in the entire continent. Unless a warrior practices to the level of a grandmaster, even a grandmaster can only roam on the ground. But the grandmaster is different. Control the power of heaven and earth, travel the world. He believes that the devil wings will give him a surprise. Perhaps the flying speed can match the grandmaster. At that time, he can really protect himself in front of the grandmaster. Everyone looked at Xiaojian with a smile on his face in the field, with mixed feelings. Logically speaking, Xiaojian secretly learned their martial arts and was a mortal enemy. But they also received the favor of Xiaojian's guidance and owed Xiaojian a big favor. It is not appropriate to fight Xiaojian to death again. Besides, they are not Xiaojian's opponents when they fight together. Thinking of this, he felt much better. Now the pressure is on Yuan Chengdu and others. They are from aristocratic families and are the strongest ones. How to solve this matter depends on them. Yuan Chengdu, what do you say we should do now? Song Shidao asked with some entanglement. He didn't want to fight anymore, he was no match for Xiaojian at all. If they continue to fight, it will be a disgrace to their Song family. Yuan Chengdu looked unhappy, and turned around and asked, are you going to let him go? Don't forget, he knows the Tiandao swordsmanship of your Song family. If it gets out, how can your Song family gain a foothold in the world? Wanwan sneered when she heard this. If the martial arts are spread out, you can't gain a foothold in the world. Why do I feel that you are implying Shaolin Temple? Puff. The people around couldn't help laughing. Shaolin Temple has the reputation of being the place where all the martial arts in the world come from. If it is said that if the martial arts are spread out, you can't gain a foothold in the world, what does Shaolin Temple say? Wanwan's words made them feel much better. Even Shaolin's martial arts have been leaked, so it's nothing if their martial arts are leaked out. Yuan Chengdu was so angry that his chest hurt. Since he came to Yangzhou City, he, the son of the Yuan family, seemed to have lost his halo. He was pressed to the ground and rubbed by Xiaojian. He lost all his face. When has he ever suffered such a loss? He was naturally upset. He turned to the people around him and said, what about you? Do you mean the same thing? You don't want the secret of longevity anymore, and you are ready to let others steal your martial arts. Everyone looked at each other. No one dared to respond. Just when the scene was awkward, a loud voice suddenly came from the sky. A bunch of trash, actually let a kid from the Ming dynasty be so arrogant. Everyone was horrified. They all looked up. I saw a bald monk with a person stepping out of thin air. There was a faint golden light on his body, and the overwhelming pressure made everyone breathless. Grandmaster. Everyone was stunned. The Grandmaster actually appeared in Yangzhou. This is simply incredible. Yuan Chengdu and others were also stunned. There are a number of Grandmasters in the world. And that monk is obviously not from their family, nor from the Sui and Tang Shaolin Temple. Who is he? Xiao Jian's pupils suddenly shrank. He didn't know the monk in the sky, but he knew the person next to the monk. It was Marong Fu who disappeared a few days ago. He didn't know where he found a Grandmaster. Marong Fu saw Xiao Jian's shocked eyes, and his mouth was almost grinning to the roots behind his ears. He murmured, Xiao Jian, I wonder if you will die this time. In order to find someone who can deal with Xiao Jian, he traveled day and night and finally found Fu Nanda from Tianzhu. Fu Nanda is the national teacher of Tianzhu. He is insidious and cunning, known as the crazy monk of Tianzhu, and just broke through to the Grandmaster level not long ago. He also heard the news and decided to invite him out of the mountain. For this reason, he even promised that as long as Xiao Jian was killed, he would offer his family's doge Yuan Xingyi. He also lured Xiao Jian with many martial arts. This is how Fu Nanda came out of the mountain. The two men landed in front of Xiao Jian, and Marong Fu said proudly, Xiao Jian, you have done so many evil things, today is the day you will be buried. Xiao Jian did not even look at Marong Fu, but looked at Fu Nanda with interest. He smiled faintly. Master, are you from Shaolin Temple? Fu Nanda had dark skin, short stature, flat nose, and thick lips. He looked like a foreigner. Anyone who was not blind could tell. Fu Nanda smiled playfully. Lao Na is indeed not from the Central Plains, but he has traveled to the Central Plains and is quite yearning for the Central Plains culture. Xiao Jian nodded and asked, since you are from a foreign country, why do you want to interfere in the affairs of the Central Plains? Aren't you afraid of the masters of the Central Plains? Whether it is the Ming dynasty or the Sui dynasty, they are all Han people. No matter how much the Han people fight or how much they argue, they are still brothers. How can they allow others to interfere? Yuan Chengdu and others also looked angry. Master, this matter has nothing to do with you, please don't interfere. Yes, my Song family doesn't want you to interfere either. And my Yinkui sect doesn't want you to interfere either. Everyone reported the names of forces one after another, and Fu Nanda's face changed. Although the cultivation of these young people was nothing in his eyes, they had people behind them. When he traveled in the Central Plains, he had fought against some martial arts masters in the Central Plains. He knew how powerful they were. If he really offended them, the consequences would not be something he was willing to bear. Marong Fu's face changed, and he chuckled. Master, this trip is only for Xiao Jian's Shaolin martial arts, and has nothing to do with you and the forces behind him. His goal has always been Xiao Jian, and he doesn't care about the longevity secret at all. Xiao Jian then looked at Marong Fu and sneered. Marong Fu, you are really embarrassing yourself abroad. Don't call yourself Nan Marong in the future. I think Chao Feng is not willing to be on par with you. Xiao Jian's words pierced Marong Fu's heart like a needle. It made his face twisted instantly. Staring at Xiao Jian angrily, he wanted to eat his flesh and drink his blood. If it weren't for Xiao Jian, would he have become like this? Before Xiao Jian appeared, he was still the Nan Marong that everyone praised in the world. A handsome man, a young man in troubled times. No one in the younger generation can surpass him. What happens after Xiao Jian appears? Every time, he was the one who got the worst abuse. Where does he have any reputation now? Almost everyone shouted and beat me up. Unless Xiao Jian dies, he will never think of raising his head and becoming a human being. Not to mention his plan to restore the country. Thinking of this, Marong Fu's eyes almost overflowed with murderous intent. He turned to Fu Nanda beside him and said, Master, he is Xiao Jian, and he has the secret of longevity that everyone in the world seeks. It is said that if you can get it, you will live forever. Fananda's eyes towards Xiao Jian became dangerous. It was Xiao Jian who almost pitted him against many forces in the world just now. So naturally he would not have a good look towards Xiao Jian. He said to everyone around him in a cold tone, Lao Na came here today, it's just a personal grudge, it has nothing to do with you, get out of here. Fananda's words made Yuan Chengdu and others look ugly. But they are great masters, and the attacks from great masters are not something they can withstand. Unless they have the cultivation level of a great master, no one present can do anything to him. He could only start to retreat angrily. Wanwan's pretty face turned red with anger at Fananda's words. The Grand Master came to Xiao Jian to resolve personal grudges. How shameless would it be to say this? But strength is the truth. Even if she uses her master's name, it will not be able to quench her thirst. I could only look at Xiao Jian worriedly, but saw that Xiao Jian's expression was as usual. Instead, there was some excitement in his eyes. A bold idea came to her mind. Could Xiao Jian be able to compete with the Grand Master? Wanwan shook her head, getting rid of this terrifying thought. There is a huge difference between the third level of Grand Master and the Great Grand Master. Absolutely not possible. She was not the only one who had this idea. No one thought that Xiao Jian could withstand Fananda's attack. He could only look at Xiao Jian from a distance. There was a hint of complexity in his eyes. Song Shidao sighed and said, if Xiao Jian does not die, then our Song family will never pursue him for secretly learning sword skills. Du Goose also nodded. Even if the Grand Master takes action, Xiao Jian cannot be killed. If they continue to cause trouble for Xiao Jian, they are just asking for trouble. Fananda saw everyone retreating, with a hint of pride on his face. He looked like he was convinced that Xiao Jian was defeated. He said in a deep voice, Xiao Jian, hand over your martial arts secret book, and Lao Na will leave you a complete body. Xiao Jian sneered and said disdainfully, if you want my martial arts secrets, it depends on how capable you are. You're just an old monk who has just become a Grand Master. Do you really think you can defeat me? If I were to become a Grand Master when I reached your age, it would be better for me to crash to death. His words were full of contempt for Fananda. You are presumptuous. Fananda's face was ugly and his eyes were cold. Then he raised his right hand and slapped Xiao Jian. In an instant, the nearby spiritual energy of heaven and earth was instantly absorbed by it. The clouds and the sky also moved with the wind, turning into a rapidly rotating tornado. Xiao Jian was at the center of the tornado. The huge coercion of heaven and earth suddenly fell towards Xiao Jian. Even the ground began to shake. When the surrounding warriors saw this, they were horrified and retreated again and again. The Grand Master's casual blow was so powerful, and if it fell, it would cause a huge commotion. Xiao Jian's face was solemn, and the internal energy in his body was rapidly running through his meridians. Vaguely, the spiritual energy around him suddenly rioted. It formed a strong pressure. Although it is not as powerful as Fananda, it is not something that a person at the third level of a master can achieve. Pretend to be a ghost. Fananda snorted coldly with a gloomy face, and then slapped him down. The whistling sound of the palm prints falling spread throughout Yangzhou city. Xiao Jian looked calmly at the palm prints falling in the air. The star gauze appears on the body. Then golden dragon phantoms emerged from the body. Ouch! The golden dragon looked up to the sky and roared, rushing towards the palm print with astonishing momentum. Boom! The two collided with each other, causing the ground around Xiao Jian to sink and kicking up dust all over the sky. Xiao Jian's figure was shrouded in smoke and dust and disappeared. Xiao Jian! Shi Feishuan suddenly screamed and rushed forward to check. But Wanwan stopped him. He said loudly, don't be impulsive, things may turn around. Xiao Jian's calm look just now was not an act. She also didn't believe that Xiao Jian would do something he was not sure about. Is there any turning point? Is there any turning point? Song Shidao beside him sighed. The power of the Grand Master's attack cannot be blocked by the Grand Master level. Even if he was a peak master, he would still be unable to protect himself from Fananda's slap. Let alone a warrior at the third level of Grand Master. Wanwan said firmly. Xiao Jian will definitely be fine, I believe him. Just now, she said that there was a turn of events because of her trust in Xiao Jian. The ugly look on Fananda's face proved that she was definitely not wrong. Fananda stared closely into the smoke. There was no hint of success. On the contrary, he seemed a little angry. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. Could things really turn around? As everyone waited anxiously, the smoke and dust gradually dissipated. Xiao Jian's figure appeared in front of everyone. How is this possible? Murong Fu screamed. Xiao Jian did not have any signs of injury under Fu Nanda's attack. Even his clothes were not wrinkled at all. Instead, he looked like he was smiling. Shi Feishuan opened her mouth wide and murmured, "Is this Xiao Jian's true strength?" At the third level of Grand Master, he confronted the Grand Master. Fu Nanda's eyes became a little vague. Pointing at Xiao Jian, he screamed, "You! How come you are not hurt at all? This is impossible." Xiao Jian smiled faintly. "Nothing is impossible. Your strength doesn't seem to be as strong as you think." Fu Nanda clenched his teeth and clenched his fists. He has the most say in how big the gap is between the Grandmaster level and the Grandmaster peak. After his breakthrough, he was confident that he could beat 10 of his original selves. And there was no pressure at all. In other words, his strength after breaking through the Grandmaster level was at least 10 times higher than before. Even so, he couldn't defeat a third-level Grandmaster. This made him explode instantly. "Impossible, I don't believe it." Fu Nanda shouted angrily, and at the same time, he rushed towards Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian felt a flash in front of his eyes, and Fu Nanda appeared in front of him. A punch hit his chest fiercely. "Since you don't believe it, then I will let you know what despair is." Xiao Jian moved his feet and disappeared on the spot. The opponent in front of him is a great Grandmaster, so Xiao Jian will not be careless. He immediately used all his strength. The internal force in his body flowed wildly, and even those giant elephant particles were mobilized. In addition to the bonus of various top martial arts that he could use at will. At this time, Xiao Jian felt unprecedentedly powerful. The wind god leg under his feet started, and his figure suddenly became extremely fast. Ghostly figures flashed one after another. Then, countless martial arts such as the Vajra Palm, the Cloud-Clearing Palm, and the Heavenly Sword technique attacked Fu Nanda. A wave of attacks was set off. And Fu Nanda could not catch Xiao Jian's figure at all. He could only hastily counterattack when the attack was about to approach. For a moment, Fu Nanda seemed to be besieged by dozens of martial artists of the same realm. The situation became very difficult. He could only defend himself, but not fight back. At the same time, the system prompt sound kept ringing in Xiao Jian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force value fragment, internal force value plus 1000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the yoga fragment, automatically comprehending yoga. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the yoga fragment, martial arts experience value plus 100. The people in the distance were stunned by this earth-shaking scene. Xiao Jian's various top martial arts bloomed with amazing light. Even the glory of Fu Nanda, the great master, was overshadowed. The collision between Xiao Jian and Fu Nandao can cause a slight spatial fluctuation. Like a wave, it slaps in all directions layer by layer. Wherever the fluctuation passes, even the ground is scraped off a thick layer. The houses and trees around are also torn apart by the spatial fluctuation. Nothing is left within hundreds of meters. Looking at Xiao Jian's elegant and graceful figure, everyone swallowed hard. Is that Xiao Jian? Xiao Jian who just fought with us? Is the third-level Grandmaster so powerful? Can he suppress the Grandmaster? It is Xiao Jian who can suppress the Grandmaster, not the third-level Grandmaster. That Fu Nandao is too weak. What Grandmaster? I think he is at most the peak of the Grandmaster. Everyone started to discuss. It was really unbelievable. They fought with Xiao Jian for so long, and they were still alive and kicking. It was obvious that Xiao Jian showed mercy. Otherwise, they would all be finished. Shi Feishuan and Wanwan were very excited when they saw this scene. They almost cheered for Xiao Jian. Murong Fu's face was distorted and his mentality almost exploded. He had a vague ominous premonition. He had been beaten by Xiao Jian many times, and he had an inexplicable feeling that Xiao Jian would still be safe this time. HMPH, what a great master, you just broke through and haven't stabilized your realm yet. Murong Fu was furious, glared at Fu Nanda, and then left silently. Fortunately, he hadn't handed over Dozhuan Xingyi yet. Otherwise, he would have lost both the wife and the army. Under Xiao Jian's attack, Funanda's body was covered with palm prints and footprints. He looked embarrassed. Even if he was at the level of a great master, he felt that his body could not bear it if he continued to fight like this. "Ah, get out of here!" Funanda roared, and violent internal force fluctuations broke out from his body. In an instant, the world shook, and the spiritual energy of the world within a radius of several miles was forcibly absorbed into his body. His whole body seemed to be integrated into the world. There was no form or shape, only a faint golden shadow. This state was a bit like the mysterious feeling when Ji Gang took him. It was like being independent of this world, in a parallel time and space. All attacks passed through his shadow. Xiao Jian frowned and stopped attacking. He just looked at Funanda quietly. "Ha ha ha ha, Xiao Jian, you can actually push me to this point, but so what? You can't do anything to me." Funanda shouted arrogantly. This state is the martial arts he comprehended, and the Brahman and I are one in yoga. In this state, he can merge with heaven and earth and become invisible and formless. Unless he is an extremely powerful person in the Grand Master realm, there is absolutely nothing he can do against him. Xiao Jian's expression was calm, with a slight sneer at the corner of his mouth. He has learned all Funanda's martial arts. I also understand this state very well. Don't look at it now that Funanda seems immune to all attacks. In fact, he could only maintain this state for about 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, he was protected from outside attacks. At the same time, he cannot attack people outside. Otherwise, it will fall out of this state. In the distance, everyone was very ashamed of Funanda's behavior. They all shouted, "He is obviously a great master and can't beat Xiao Jian, but he still pulls this trick." There is simply no shame at all. Funanda heard everyone's words and was not moved at all. He looked at the people who were talking with a cold expression. He threatened, "Old Nako will remember what any of you said." These words made everyone's expressions freeze and they all closed their mouths. I could only scold Funanda in my heart for being shameless. He couldn't defeat Xiao Jian, but he actually took it out on them. Seeing that the threat was effective, Funanda then said to Xiao Jian, "Your boy is really good. The third level of Grandmaster can actually match the Grandmaster level. It's a pity that you are still a little younger. Lao Na doesn't want to do something that will kill the genius. Why not let's end the grudge between you and me, okay?" Xiao Jian looked at Funanda playfully and crossed his arms on his chest. He didn't say anything, just waiting for Funanda's state to be lifted. Seeing that Xiao Jian didn't speak, Funanda continued, "As a Grand Master, I must have my own unique skills. If you don't give in, don't blame Lao Na for being ruthless." Xiao Jian raised the corners of his mouth slightly and looked at Funanda mockingly. He was forced into this situation, and he still wanted to threaten him. Shi Feishuan and others looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Xiao Jian actually forced a great master into such a situation. He personally asked for peace, but it seemed that Xiao Jian was still unwilling. It seems that there is an idea of fighting until the end. If word spreads, people will be frightened to death. When Funanda saw that Xiao Jian was silent, he suddenly became anxious. If he waited any longer, he wouldn't be able to hold it any longer. If you can't win the battle then, it will be even worse in terms of face. "Xiao Jian, what do you mean? You made me anxious, and you won't be left behind," Funanda said fiercely, trying to threaten Xiao Jian with this. Xiao Jian heard this and said calmly, "You came to trouble me, and now you want to make peace. Don't you think too little of me?" Funanda almost vomited blood. It's embarrassing enough that his great Grand Master wants to settle his grudges, what more does he want? Funanda gritted his teeth and said, "What do you want? Do you have to force me to use a trick?" Xiao Jian looked at Funanda teasingly and mercilessly opened the last bit of his fig leaf. "Tisk, haven't you already used your trick? Haven't you already used your special trick? Brahma and I are in the same realm." Xiao Jian's words made Funanda's expression change drastically. Couldn't stay calm anymore. He screamed, "How do you know? This is his last life-saving trump card. Never showed it in front of anyone." Xiao Jian touched his chin and looked at the frightened Funanda, with a smile on his lips. "You can hardly hold it anymore, you are not ready to come out yet." Funanda had talked so much with Xiao Jian just now, and Xiao Jian deliberately delayed it for so long. It seemed that the time limit had expired. Snort. Funanda snorted coldly, swayed, and revealed his true body again. It's just that his face is extremely ugly. But he is the Grand Master after all, and Xiaojian's attack just now cannot kill him. At most it just makes him look a little embarrassed. Xiaojian, you can't do anything to me, why bother pestering me so hard? He now understands that Xiaojian is a monster. Although he was only at the 3rd level of Grandmaster, his combat prowess was not inferior to that of the Grandmaster who had just become a Grandmaster. At this time, Funanda felt very regretful. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have troubled Xiaojian. Even if you want to trouble him, you have to wait until your realm is consolidated. Xiaojian shook his head and chuckled. You think I can't do anything to you, but I don't think so. Besides, if you can torture a great master, it will be very satisfying if word spreads about it. After saying that, Xiaojian suddenly disappeared from the spot and started the 2nd round of attack. After finally finding a baby with such good experience, Xiaojian felt sorry for himself if he didn't bald him. Funanda almost vomited blood, but facing Xiaojian's rapid attack, there was nothing he could do. We can only respond hastily. Everyone around saw that Funanda could only defend under Xiaojian's attack and had no power to fight back. My whole body was numb. Yuan Chengdu suddenly said, why do you think Xiaojian snatched the secret of immortality? With his strength, the secret of immortality shouldn't be anything to him, right? He doesn't believe that the secret of immortality can really make people live forever. At most it's just a relatively profound martial arts. Xiaojian has countless top martial arts skills. The mere immortality technique is not enough to make Xiaojian stand on the opposite side of everyone. Song Shidao's face darkened. He thought of something, clenched his fists and remained silent. Du Guxi's eyes rolled, and his eyes widened with anger. He cursed loudly. That kid is so evil. His goal is not the Changshengju at all, but our martial arts. No wonder he threatened to challenge the world's masters, and he is waiting for us here. Song Shidao could no longer bear it, and gritted his teeth and said, you are so smart, if you can't speak, don't speak. Just now, Yuan Chengdu almost said it directly, and everyone knew what was going on. He just didn't say it in order to save face. As a result, Du Guxi kept talking loudly, as if he was afraid that others would not know. Du Guxi was scolded, but he was not angry at all. Instead, he laughed. Ha 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 ha, you Song Shidao have fallen flat on your face. Among them, the Song family's heavenly sword technique is the top martial arts. The loss is naturally the biggest. Wan Wan suddenly said, do you think Xiaojian is secretly learning Funanda's martial arts? Everyone looked at each other in surprise. This idea is too crazy. Du Guxi murmured, is this impossible? That's a grandmaster. It's incredible enough to suppress a grandmaster with a grandmaster. Could it be that Xiaojian can also secretly learn Funanda's martial arts while fighting? What they don't know is that Xiaojian has already learned Funanda's martial arts. At this time, he is happily brushing experience. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force value fragment, internal force value plus 1000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the internal force value fragment, internal force value plus 1000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the yoga fragment, martial arts experience value plus 100. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the yoga fragment, martial arts experience value plus 100. The battle between the two people made the nearby heaven and earth a mess. The space was constantly twisting and changing. The faint space fluctuation made the hundreds of meters in radius a mess. The ground was cracked and the gravel flew. Under Xiaojian's intensive attack, Funanda was covered with footprints and palm prints, and his face was gray and embarrassed. The corners of his mouth began to ooze out traces of blood, and even his internal organs ached faintly. Funanda realized that if he continued like this, he might really fall into Xiaojian's hands. He couldn't help but get anxious. He resisted Xiaojian's kicks for a few times and distanced himself from Xiaojian. Then he soared into the air and stood in the air hundreds of meters above the ground. Looking at Xiaojian standing below, Funanda finally reacted. Grandmasters can't fly, so what if Xiaojian is so powerful? What's the use if you can't hit him? On the contrary, As long as he doesn't go down, beating Xiaojian is not a piece of cake. Ha 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 ha, Xiaojian, it's my turn now. Fu Nanda laughed loudly and slapped his palms down continuously. Xiaojian twitched the corners of his mouth and dodged quickly. Boom, the palms slapped on the ground, forming deep pits one after another. Although Xiaojian didn't hit him for a while, Fu Nanda laughed wildly at Xiaojian's embarrassed dodging. Xiaojian, aren't you capable? Don't run if you have the ability. Take Lao Na's palm. The onlookers were stunned by this reversal. Just now Xiaojian was suppressing Fu Nanda. How did it suddenly change? However, everyone who came back to their senses almost choked on their own saliva. They cursed Fu Nanda for being shameless in their hearts. Relying on his status as a grandmaster, he actually flew into the sky. How could Xiaojian fight him? Wanwan and Shi Feishuan were furious. They had never seen such a shameless person. Not only did he bully the weak, but he also acted like a rogue. Xiaojian was chased and bombarded by Fu Nanda, although he was not injured. But he looked extremely embarrassed. He looked up at Fu Nanda with a flash of anger in his eyes. He murmured, "You are bullying me because I can't fly, right?" After this period of fighting, he gained a lot of experience and internal strength. Maybe it's time to summon the devil's wings. Thinking of this, Xiaojian glanced at his attribute panel. Name: Xiaojian. Age: 17. Skills: the first chapter of the Divine Elephant Prison Power, 660 Giant Elephant Particles. Can condense the spear of the underworld god. Martial arts: Great Power Vajra Palm, Great Battle Star Shift, Great Wind God Leg, Great Cloud Palm, Minor Heaven Frost Fist, Minor Heart Demon Attraction, Minor Dragon Subduing 18 Palms, Minor North Sea Divine Art, Minor Flame Knife, Minor Great Wilderness Holy Dragon Fist, Minor Kasaya Subduing Demon Art, Minor Chess Sword, Minor Heaven Sword. Martial Arts Experience Value: 14,040. Internal Force Value: 15,300. Internal Force Value is a bit low, and it can only be improved by one level. Xiaojian put it aside temporarily. All the experience value is used to awaken the giant elephant particles. One by one, the giant elephant particles began to awaken. In an instant, an ancient and mysterious aura surged from Xiaojian's body. As the giant elephant particles on Xiaojian's body awakened, the whole world seemed to solidify. Everyone felt like they were being stared at by some terrifying existence. The hair on their bodies stood on end. What is this? Wanwan and Shi Feishuan looked at each other and immediately understood that Xiaojian was preparing to show his trump card. The two had seen it several times. Every time they saw it, they could feel that this move was getting stronger and stronger. Each time was more shocking than the last time. Song Shidao looked in the direction of Xiaojian, his eyes were a little dull, and he murmured, "Is this his strength?" Xiaojian's strength once again refreshed their cognition. Fu Nantuo was stunned and horrified. In his perception, Xiaojian on the ground seemed to have turned into an ancient god elephant. Mysterious and powerful, just that kind of breath made him tremble with fear. It was a little unstable in midair. Xiaojian closed his eyes and carefully felt the changes in his body. This time, there were a full 140 giant elephant particles awakened. Adding the original 660, Xiaojian could mobilize exactly 800 giant elephant particles. In his perception, 800 giant elephant particles traveled through the 8 extraordinary meridians. Finally, they arrived at the Fengman acupoint on the back. Stab it! A crisp sound sounded, and 2 large holes were torn open in the clothes on Xiaojian's back. The devil's wings formed by condensing internal energy are officially launched. Behind Xiaojian, he saw a pair of wings several feet long, as dark as ink, deep and mysterious. It seems to be the darkest existence in the universe, and also like the incarnation of Hades in hell. On the dark wings, dark light flows, and the shape of the devil is imprinted on it. The aura of evil is vast and powerful. Fu Nanda happened to hit him with a slap, but Xiaojian didn't even dodge this time. The wings spread slightly, and the attack that knocked it down was quietly resolved. It didn't cause any shock. Xiaojian raised his head, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and murmured to Fu Nanda. "Now, it's my turn." Immediately, Xiaojian's figure turned into a jet black stream of light. Instantly appeared in front of Fu Nanda. A punch fell, and a faint roar of an elephant sounded. The space was dented by Xiao Jian's punch. Pong! Before Fananda could react, Xiao Jian's fist had already landed on his chest, smashing it violently several dozen feet away. However, before Fananda could adjust his posture, the devil's wings behind Xiao Jian shook. The whole person disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he was already behind Fananda. With one kick, Fananda was kicked out again. Just like that, Fananda was kicked around in midair like a ball, not even given time to land. The people below looked up at this scene. He opened his mouth wide and swallowed hard. With their strength, they couldn't even see Xiao Jian's movements clearly. I could just barely see a dark trail flashing back and forth in midair. There was also Fananda, who was beaten back and forth. Is this Xiao Jian? Can he fly? Wanwan said with difficulty, her brain a little unable to react. Isn't Xiao Jian in the Grandmaster realm? How can I fly? It was flying so fast that even the masters like them couldn't see clearly. And what are those mysterious and terrifying wings on the back? How come Xiao Jian has a pair of wings? Too many questions were running through her mind. Just like Fananda, who was kicked and couldn't tell the difference between east, west, north and south. Shi Feishuan opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. She has many more problems than Wanwan. Everyone else looked dumbfounded. I feel like my brain is not enough. Mid-air, Fananda desperately wanted to escape, but his speed was incomparable to Xiao Jian. Before he could stand firm, Xiao Jian's big foot had already kicked him. Ah, Xiao Jian, you deserve to die. Fananda shouted. He is a great master, a generation of martial arts seniors, but Xiao Jian is actually being kicked back and forth like a ball. In anger, he began to explode desperately. Internal forces were running wildly inside his body. It caused the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth to tremble endlessly. Suddenly, Fananda pulled off the beads from his neck with both hands. Under the deep internal force, he threw it hard. The scattered beads shot in all directions at extremely fast speeds. Xiao Jian smiled faintly and completely surrounded his body with his wings. Not a single leak. Demon wings are not only the fastest in the world, they also have extremely powerful defense. Even if it is one level higher than him, it can't break through the demon wing's defense. Fananda is even less likely. Of course, Fananda never thought that Xiao Jian could be hurt in this way. He just wanted to use a feint to slow down Xiao Jian. The desperate look just now was just for Xiao Jian to see. As soon as Xiao Jian stopped, Fananda accelerated and hit the ground straight. There was a loud bang and a cloud of dust was raised. Disappeared in everyone's eyes. Ha! Xiao Jian let out a light sigh, his wings flashed behind his back, and he suddenly appeared on the ground. With a wave of his wings, the smoke and dust dispersed in the wind. Fananda took advantage of this opportunity and ran away immediately. If you can't outrun Xiao Jian with wings in the sky, can you still outrun him on the ground? At least that's what Fananda thinks. Shish! The people in the distance suddenly laughed. The majestic Grandmaster was actually forced to run away from the ground. Fananda is also the best person in the world. In their impression, great masters always come and go. This is the first time I have seen such a miserable Grandmaster. Want to run? Can you run? Xiao Jian looked at Fananda's back, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He had no intention of letting Fananda go. If a living Grandmaster hides in secret and creates trouble for him, that's annoying enough. The best solution is to kill him and end it all. Anyway, Fananda has done all kinds of bad things and is not a good person. If you kill him, you will be doing harm to the people. Xiao Jian held his right hand, and the spear of Hades appeared in his palm, shining with a faint bright white light. After this upgrade, the spear of Hades has become more substantial. The power has been greatly improved. Go! Xiao Jian threw it out suddenly, and the spear of Hades flew towards Fananda. A faint space crack was left in the air. It was obviously left by the shuttle space. Fananda was secretly happy when he saw that Xiao Jian did not chase him. As expected, Xiao Jian had those wings, and his speed was extremely fast in the sky. But on the ground, the third level of the Grandmaster is still the third level of the Grandmaster. How could he run faster than a great Grandmaster like him? Fananda gritted his teeth and swore in his heart. After going back to consolidate his realm, he must call his friends and get this place back. Presumably, those great grandmasters will also be very interested in Xiao Jian. Just as he was thinking about how to retaliate, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. Alarm bells rang in his heart. Turning his head, a white light flashed. It instantly penetrated his forehead. What is this? Fu Nanda only had time to ask in his heart, and then he fell into darkness. The people in the distance only saw Xiao Jian's spear thrown. Fu Nanda, who was running fast, fell to the ground with his back to the sky, and his breath was gone. He was killed instantly by Xiao Jian's move. Gulp. Yuan Chengdu swallowed hard. A grandmaster died just like that. That's a grandmaster. Even his Yuan family doesn't have many. A grandmaster is a guest of honor for all major forces no matter where he is. Now he died so easily in front of them. Wanwan and Shi Feishuan were also stunned. Xiao Jian's strength once again refreshed their cognition. When they were in the Shantian realm, they could still fight with Xiao Jian. But what about now? If Xiao Jian hadn't shown mercy, they wouldn't even be qualified to fight with Xiao Jian, right? A sense of frustration arose. Xiao Jian glanced at the fallen Fu Nanda and rolled his eyes. An idea flashed through his mind. Then the 800 giant elephant particles in the body started to work, absorbing 70% to 80% of the blood in the body. In an instant, Xiao Jian's face turned extremely pale, his hair was dry and yellow, and his eyes became dull. He couldn't help shaking. A feeling of powerlessness surged into his heart. I paid such a high price, I hope the result will not disappoint me, right? Xiao Jian murmured. He did this just to catch a fish. Hide the blood in the body. When he needs to recover, he will naturally give those who have bad intentions a surprise. Wanwan felt that Xiao Jian's breath suddenly dropped, her face changed, and she hurriedly ran towards Xiao Jian. Shi Feishuan also reacted. Hurry up and follow. Yuan Chengdu and others looked at each other. Just now, they actually felt that Xiao Jian's breath dropped rapidly. Looking at that figure, it seemed to be shaky. Out of curiosity, everyone followed. Xiao Jian, what's wrong with you? Shi Feishuan was the first to reach Xiao Jian, and hurriedly supported Xiao Jian's body and asked. As soon as she put her arm around Xiao Jian, Shi Feishuan felt that Xiao Jian's body was weak and his breath was very weak. Before Xiao Jian could answer, the others also gathered around. Hiss. What's going on? Wanwan opened her mouth wide and looked at Xiao Jian in disbelief. At this moment, Xiao Jian was no longer as high-spirited as he was when he fought against many people alone. He looked listless, his hair was yellow, and his eyes were dull. It was obvious that he had consumed too much blood and essence. The faces of the people around him changed. There was an elusive meaning in his eyes. Xiao Jian still had the secret of immortality. In addition, he had so many top martial arts, and there were many people who wanted to take advantage of him. However, Xiao Jian's performance just now was too amazing. Even if he was not in good condition now, no one dared to be the first to attack. The atmosphere became weird. Everyone was silent, as if waiting for the first person to take action. Song Shidao turned his head and looked at the people around him, sighed and said, My Song family will withdraw from the competition for the Chengshengju. Xiao Jian's strength completely impressed him. At the age of less than 20, he was able to defeat the Grand Master. Song Shidao knew very well what this meant. Unless it was confirmed that Xiao Jian was dead, he definitely didn't want to stand on the opposite side of Xiao Jian. What's more, Xiao Jian had taught him martial arts. No matter from which aspect, it was not justifiable to take advantage of someone's misfortune and attack Xiao Jian. After saying that, Song Shidao also looked at Yuan Chengdu and others. Dugu Ce also shook his head. My Dugu family also withdrew from the competition for the Chengshengju. He was not stupid. If he took action now, he would completely offend Xiao Jian. Don't look at Xiao Jian's weak appearance. If he angered him, who knows how much fighting power he still had. Yuan Chengdu also nodded. Xiao Jian is too evil, he doesn't want to cause trouble for his family. For the children of these big families, it is not worth it to offend Xiao Jian, a young man with infinite potential, for a mere longevity secret. At the beginning, they did not know how powerful Xiao Jian was. Now that they know, they still want to make enemies with Xiao Jian, that's pure brain water. After several people expressed their opinions, the atmosphere in the field also relaxed. Xiao Jian nodded secretly in his heart. It seems that the children of big families are not all fools. On the contrary, many other people in the martial arts world were moved. That is the secret of longevity. Maybe you can change your destiny if you give it a try. However, because Yuan Chengdu and others gave up, and Wanwan and Shi Feishuan acted like they were protecting Xiao Jian, everyone could only suppress this thought. As for what they think in their hearts, only they themselves know. Things have settled. The crowd also began to retreat gradually. Master Feishuan and Wanwan were holding Xiao Jian, neither of them letting go. Beside, Bu Jingyan stood quietly behind Xiao Jian. Look at the people around you with alert eyes. He owed Xiao Jian too many favors. This is the only way to repay a little bit. Fu Junjuo was followed by Ko Zhang. Standing quietly in front of Xiao Jian, there was a trace of stubbornness in his eyes. He neither took action nor refused to leave. Wanwan saw this and said very rudely, "If you haven't left yet, what are you doing here?" Now is the time when Xiao Jian is at his weakest, and she doesn't want any accidents to happen. It would be best if she was the only one next to Xiao Jian. Thinking like this, Wanwan even lost her face. Even the look he looked at Shi Feishuan became very aggressive. Like a hen guarding her calf. Fu Junjuo pointed at Xiao Jian and said, "My longevity secret is still with him, so naturally I have to find him to get it back." Wanwan asked bluntly, "Are you sure you can get it back?" Shi Feishuan is also very vigilant. Fu Junjuo's face looked a little ugly. Don't look at Xiao Jian swaying at this time. But even if there was only one blow, it was not something she could withstand. In addition, Wanwan and the other two were nearby, as well as the Grand Master Bu Jingyan. She had no confidence that she could regain the secret of longevity. In other words, she didn't dare to grab it at all. He could only look at Xiao Jian helplessly. Xiao Jian shook his head and said softly, "Since you want to follow, then follow." Now he still needs the secret of immortality to draw a wave of hatred. In other words, it gives the masters who may appear later a reason to take action. Once his goal is achieved, the immortality technique will have no effect on him. There is no problem in returning it to Fu Junjuo. Besides, Ko and Zhang will need to find the evil emperor's relic later. By that time, he might still be able to catch the cicada as a mantis, with the oriole behind. Another great harvest. Xiao Jian spoke, and Wanwan and Shi Feishuan no longer held on to Fu Junjuo. The most important thing now is for Xiao Jian to recover. Wanwan couldn't help but ask, "What on earth did you do? Why are you so depleted of energy and blood?" Xiao Jian is in the Grand Master realm, but his current physical condition is not even comparable to that of an innate realm. Completely half-wasted body. It's really not easy to recover. Xiao Jian shook his head. He looked at the people leaving around him and smiled softly. The Battle of Yangzhou became known to the world through word of mouth among many people in the martial arts world. The disciples of the four great clans and hundreds of people worked together to attack and were defeated by Xiao Jian. The most exaggerated thing is that Xiao Jian actually secretly learned their martial arts skills on the spot. Moreover, he was better than his master, and under his guidance, Song Shidao's martial arts reached a state of great success. This legendary scene made Xiao Jian even more mysterious. What shocked the world even more was that the great master of Tianzhu, Funanda, was killed on the spot by Xiao Jian. This move instantly detonated the entire world. A great master is a rare being encountered in many years. He actually let Xiao Jian, who was at the third level of Grand Master, be killed. This breaking news caused an uproar in the world. Under Xiao Jian's deliberate disguise, the news of his injury spread throughout the world. People everywhere are discussing this matter privately. But in the secret, more people are focusing on Xiao Jian's various top martial arts skills. Martial arts that allow a master to fly in the sky have not been heard of for tens of thousands of years. No matter what the rumors are in the world, Xiao Jian still chose to stay in Yangzhou City. Even though Wanwan and Master Feishuan invited Xiao Jian many times to go to the Yingkui sect and Sihang Jingzai to cultivate, Xiao Jian was also unmoved. After waiting in Yangzhou City for a while, no one came to trouble him. Xiao Jian became a little anxious. As everyone knows, he underestimated his own deterrence. He who can kill the great master is in the eyes of other martial arts people. There is no difference from ordinary great masters. Even more dangerous. A true master would not take such risks just for the sake of his martial arts skills. And those who have his ideas usually don't have that ability. How dare you go to Yangzhou City in person to trouble Xiao Jian? By the time Xiao Jian figured this out, nearly half a month had passed. There are many warriors coming to Yangzhou City, but more people just come to join in the fun. Look what Xiao Jian looks like. There are not many real masters, let alone dare to cause trouble for him. In this case, I'll give you a hard blow. Xiao Jian turned to look at the warriors around him and muttered to himself. Later, Xiao Jian and several others came to a restaurant to have dinner. People were coming and going in the lobby, and many martial artists were dining. Seeing Xiao Jian and his party, everyone subconsciously lowered their voices. After ordering the food, Xiao Jian suddenly turned to Fu Junzhuo and asked, "You brought out the secret of longevity, so do you know the secret of longevity?" The secret of longevity. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.